Mic check. Good. Working. Almost there. 2 more seconds. Let's do this. All right. Let me all right. There we go. Where's that all? All right, excellent. Hello, everyone. Let me just get this link here. Oh, I could copy from the thing. All right, cool. Where are we? All right, welcome everyone to the Betterment Broadcast. Let's switch to the fantastic PDF. Here it is. Tell a friend we're live. Remember, this show you can watch it anytime, but you cannot participate anytime. You can only participate when it's live. So try to come on live to give you a fantastic text. Greetings to Poetic Empress. Greetings at all. And give your opinions. All right, so where are we on the 136 shows? That's right, 136 shows of trying to help Black people. Good idea, right? What I'm going to do, I'm going to put the Instagram link in there. Follow that. It's where we promote this show. So tell a friend to be that friend. Now, where are we today? Got a fantastic show today. We're going to go through our normal start as we always do. So please bear with us. Remember these free statements. Some people will find them shocking, but they are very helpful if you're trying to help Black people. So here's the important information. When it comes to working as a collective with only Black people on matters that benefit Black issues, Black progression, and Black ownership, Black people are collectively inadequate. Yes, we struggle at working as a team, but we're going to work on that. Individually, you might find a non-Black person who shows some kind of correlation towards Black people. However, collectively, Black people have no friends. Remember, if you want to do good work, you cannot always be looking for friends. You have many non-Black friends out in the universe. Of course you do. But as a collective, no one's coming to save you. Absolutely no one. That's right. So you got to save yourselves. And last, but by no means least, very important, constructive Black man with constructive Black woman makes a constructive Black family. If you don't know, now you know. All right. Guys, I'm using one screen, so I need to resize everything just so I can get. This is what happens. This is what I'm used to, having two massive screens because I live like that. But I've moved things around, so I can't. Right, there you go. Let's make sure. Hopefully, you guys can hit. Last week, you actually couldn't hear me, so hopefully, you can hear me now. Let me just make sure. Sometimes I can. Can you hear me, guys? If you can hit, yeah, I can see the thing moving. So, that's good because last week I was talking for like a good 27 minutes or less, and no one told me I couldn't hear you because they like looking at pictures. You see, that's what happens. Right. So when we start, we're going to talk about Oh, excellent. Thank you, fans, for getting involved. Excellent, Nick and House. Now, so when it comes to the 4D values, this is what I recommend we do when we try to communicate with our brothers and sisters. We practice discipline, dedication, dignity, and discernment. That's the 4D values. When we give out the link, any Black person is welcome to jump in and try to be constructive. But please remember these 4D values. It will help us not contribute to anxiety, which a lot of topics that we talk about causes high levels of it, you see. That's right. All right. Also, can you not use any kind of derogative terms? Just try these complimentary terms if we can. Blah, 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 blah. Now, what is Black betterment? I hear you say in your head. It's Black people helping Black people on Black issues for betterment. Very simple, right? It's a lifestyle, but unfortunately, we don't seem to practice it. So we need to actually mention it. So we are practicing the lifestyle Black betterment, which is Black people helping Black people on Black issues for betterment. Bam. Excellent. We're going to show some videos. It isn't our copyright stuff, but we're using the section 107 copyright, blah, blah, blah. Don't forget to follow our Instagram page. Fantastic. And there you go. All right. Now, where are we? Okay, today's topic, not too fantastic, but it is important. So, first one is how to teach Black children about white supremacy. For those don't know, in the States at the moment, there's a young man who was unfortunately shot at by I guess you could describe as a neighbor, a white supremacist neighbor that was. And well, let me not give. We're gonna. If those who don't know, we'll watch 2 videos to update. But the question we're asking, obviously, we want them to do well. And there's some things we want to pick up just about teaching about white supremacy. And the thing is, this sad situation, you can't really reverse it or you can't really fix it. But what you can do is, we can try to teach our kids to be more prepared. Greetings from Denmark, greetings from California, Jamaica. Big up all there, big up MA, Natasha, and all the brothers and sisters coming in live. All right, part 2 is we're going to move on to do Black men collectively value building and ownership? Very important thing. Do Black men collectively value building and ownership? We have this concept where men talk to men, and we're going to see if we can actually build and make that a thing. Are we doing it good? Do we value it at all? Do Black people know that there is actually a crisis going on when it comes to ownership or anything like that? Who knows? So we're going to try to push that as a thing, and we're on part 2 at the moment. We shall keep going until we get some kind of better understanding. And then last but by no means least, if Black men don't pick a Black spouse, should that be viewed as them leaving the Black community? Man, this thing is so sorry. I've got a small screen, so I'm struggling to read this. But that's what happens when you've only got one screen. There you go. What are you going to do? Buy another one. Right, cool. Well, yes, very important. Last week there was a sister who came on. I hope she joins this week. And as she was talking, she was describing, as you know, if you don't know, in the diaspora, you tend to find out of all the people groups, obviously there's many Black men with Black women, but when you look at the ratio, there's a high amount of Black men who don't end up marrying Black women. And this tremendously goes higher when it comes to being successful, which is also a problem, by the way, in being successful and actually not picking a Black woman. Very, very, very severe charge there. But I think she described it, or we described it at the time as, does that mean the Black man is leaving the Black community, or should that be a coded language of saying it? Interesting. We'll just, we're going to get the people's thoughts because that's what we do here. But we're going to move to the first topic now. Big up everyone who's coming live, and hopefully you can jump in when we give out the link, or at least give your opinions in the forum. Catch us live because that's the best time. Now we're going to start with this unfortunate story about the brother in the States who was shot. He's good now, but he wasn't when he was shot. But let's cover we're going to break in 2 parts. We've got 2 videos, one of the incident and the family talking, and then one from the actual family of the suspected white supremacist. Not really suspected, it kind of is, but we'll just use that just for, communication purposes. Where is this video? Number 1. There we go. Blah, blah.
It's a little
Rewind.
We're going to go now to Kansas City, Missouri. That's where an 84-year-old man is now facing serious charges in the shooting of a Black teenager.
The defendant, Andrew D. Lester, is charged with the Class A felony of assault in the first degree. It carries with it a range of punishment of up to life.
Now, remember, this is obviously days after the fact, but just for something for us to remember, when this individual shot at the child, he wasn't arrested on the spot. He was arrested, I believe, the next day, or maybe a couple of days after. I'm not too sure, but I think they clarify in here. Something to remember, because sometimes we always look at things as isolated incidents, but we always want to compare as a case study as how are Black men treated when they shoot at children. Don't find too many of them doing that, really. But if the dynamics is on the other hand, is it the same kind of treatment? We're gonna view all that.
Prosecutors say the teen, Ralph Yarrow, went to the wrong house to pick up his younger brothers. He accidentally went to the shooter's home on 115th Street instead of 115th Terrace. Now, all Ralph did, according to officials, was ring the doorbell when he was shot twice, once in the head through a glass door. Ralph, thankfully, was released from the hospital and is recovering at home this morning. This all happened last Thursday. The homeowner was charged yesterday. He was taken into custody the night of the shooting, but was released 2 hours later. So Ralph Yarrow's aunt, Faith Spoonmore, joins us now, and the Yarrow family attorney, Lee Merritt. We're so
So this is Faith and the attorney.
glad to have both of you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
This is the aunt, not the mother or the father, but the aunt and the lawyer.
I really appreciate it. Ms. Spoonmore, I know that, listen, the mom was on this morning. She talked about the injuries that he was shot on the top of his left eye, shot again in the upper right arm, but that he is doing okay. How is he doing? Because he was released from the hospital Monday, correct?
He was released on Saturday. He was released from the hospital on Saturday, yes. He is doing well, he's doing well. Considering everything that he has been through in, less than a week, there's a major part of Ralph that died.
Yes, he was shot in the head and I think the leg or the arm.
Died on Thursday. And basically right now is just recovery and healing and processing and trying to understand everything that is happening. So
I just want to make sure that I
road.
heard correctly what you said. You said there was a major part of Ralph that died on Saturday. What did you say?
There's a major part of Ralph that died on Thursday.
Yeah.
What Ralph went through, he lost a part of himself that day. a lot have changed since that happened. The way in which he's going to walk through this world is going to be totally different because of what happened. There's a lot of healing that's going to happen after that event. And every single day is a challenge. Every hour is a different story. And it's a long road. So right now he's just healing.
A lot of physical healing?
Yes, still has a lot of physical healing.
And a lot of emotional.
A lot of emotional.
Yeah.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
That is hard to explain, because there's no words that you can describe that with right now. There's a lot to process. It's trying to make sense of something that is senseless, You just can't wrap your head around it. You just cannot wrap your head around it. From being shot for doing absolutely nothing wrong to crying out for help and not being able to get help, to finally getting help, but having to do something to get that help, and then going through surgery to stay alive, coming home, and knowing that the person who did this went home and was able to sleep in his bed, and seeing your family have to fight to get the justice and attention that you should have gotten from the beginning. So there's a lot. There's a lot to process.
How do you feel now that the suspect has been arrested and charged?
A little better, but yeah, it's not as simple as turning a page, because it's just not as simple as turning a page. It is a little better. It's a little better that he is hopefully going to get part of what he deserves.
Lee, you said when Faith was speaking that he lost his innocence.
Yeah, absolutely. The trauma that he experienced by just knocking on a door can't be undone. And he had to face.
So what happened was the for those who don't know, the young boy was picking up his the mother asked the eldest son or the son to pick up some of the other sons because she didn't want them to sleep over at a friend's house. So he said, "I'll pick you up later." I think she sent the young boy, 16-year-old. He used maybe Google app or something like this, but the name of the streets are similar. So he ended up maybe 100 yards away from the right place, and then the European man, the white guy, the old individual, he saw the black face in the door and then started shooting.
It's an ugly reality here in the States that the color of his skin is often seen as a threat in and of itself. The shooter, Andrew Lester, said he looked out of the door, he saw a black boy, and he feared for his life. And
that's nothing, this fearing for your life. You hear it a lot. Just being black, people fear for their life. This we're up to the question how to teach black children about white supremacy. You might have to tell them that some people will actually, see your blackness as a weapon, and they'll magnify your actual size to 8-fold. Or at least they'll use that as an excuse. So there's the other hand of whether they believe that or not. It's the excuse that they use that seems to be justified. They use the same thing with women and pain when it comes to being in the hospital, that black women can take more pain and this kind of stuff. But this is, we're always going to segue from this to black men building and ownership, because part of the solution to this is having more institutions that are dedicated to black betterment. So you can rely less on others, but we'll get to there when we get to there.
that's something that we've heard a lot in American jurisprudence and police shootings and shootings of young black boys, that their skin in and of itself is a threat.
He said he feared for his size. And listen, there's one study, and there are a number of studies, that feared for his life because of his size, right? He said he saw a black man. He thought he was a black man. Obviously, he's only 16 years old. There are studies that show from...
Now, I've posted a link that's stuck. If you wish to jump in and pause and have any comment, you most certainly can. The link is in the group, so you can jump in when you like.
The American Psychological Association and beyond that found that people see black men and black youth as bigger, stronger, and scarier than white.
How we run the show is people are welcome to jump in and they can pause and start if they want to have any kind of commentary as we watch the videos that we're case studying.
Men of the same size. Do you think that factored into this?
Absolutely. In this country, from decades, hundreds of years of conditioning, we've decided that black and criminal is almost synonymous. Black and dangerous is almost synonymous. It's been repeated in Hollywood. It's been repeated in the laws that we create.
So he said repeating Hollywood and laws. Once again, we're talking about black men ownership and stuff. We're segueing as well. What he's describing is movie and media not being controlled by black people, so a narrative is given. And we don't have much control because obviously non-black people control these medias. So a potential solution is own medias, black owned, of course, but also have black Betterment at the heart of your ownership. So that way you're trying to create content that spells different narrative. We can give a great example of Bill Cosby. I know he's been locked up and his name's been tarnished. However, prior to that, many of the first comedies were out there were very degrading and this kind of stuff, insulting black to get laughs, whatever. He came along and he made a comedy that specialized in professional black people being constructive, and because it was so impactful, everyone in America called him America's dad. So you see the power of the media. So black men, take note. There you go.
And we're just getting to a point in this country where we're trying to break that down, where we're trying to address the reality of race and racism. But we see these old vestiges pop their head on a daily basis.
Faith, what do you think of that? He said he was scared because of Ralph's size.
I don't understand how. I really don't understand how you can possibly see someone. I doubt Ralph is even 170 pounds. Ralph is not even 6 feet. Like, Ralph, when you see Ralph, in all of the pictures that you have seen on social media and everywhere else, I don't see how you see fear.
Yeah, I mean, once again, you don't have to try to quantify or anything. This is how racism works. You're dangerous because they said so, and it's a good way to fulfill some of their inner ambitions of harming black people. What we're gonna do, we're gonna stop it there. There's maybe 3 minutes more. We could watch it, but they go on to just talk about the tail thing. I think what might be more telling is to then hear the nephew, I believe, or the cousin of the elderly man who shot the child. So let's listen to rewind.
Now to Andrew Lester, the white homeowner who is accused of shooting a black 16-year-old, Ralph Yarl. He pled not guilty yesterday to 2 felonies. Lester told police that he was scared to death of Yarl due to his size. Now, Lester, who is 84 years old, was released on bond. He is due back in court June 1st. Prosecuting attorney said there was a racial component to this case.
Racism.
Miraculously, Yarl is back at home, recovering from his injuries after 3 days in the hospital. This is a picture of him taken yesterday with his lawyer, Lee Merritt. So joining us now is Clint Ludwig. He is the grandson of Andrew Lester, and we always like to get a perspective on the thinking of someone who knows him, why they might do this. So, Clint, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Don. Good morning.
Good morning to you. So what is your reaction? What was your reaction when you heard that your grandfather shot Ralph Yarl for ringing his doorbell?
Can you guys hear sound? Can you guys hear sound? I think that some people can't hear sound. If you can hear sound, just say I can hear.
I was disgusted. I thought it was terrible.
The irony, there is sound. The irony is, if you couldn't hear sound, you wouldn't hear me say it. That's the irony of the paradox of that question, isn't it?
Myself and my family stand with Ralph Yarl and seeking justice. This is a horrible tragedy. It never should have happened.
Folks are going to want to know, why are you speaking out and apparently against your grandfather?
It's the right thing to do. This country happens over and over again where people get away with killing unarmed, innocent black people, and I would have had the same energy for any other case like I've had.
So the nephew of the white supremacist is saying that the uncle was wrong and this kind of stuff, which is good. Remember, we always try, because I haven't been doing it as much lately, but I was pulled up on it a couple of weeks back. But one thing we have to understand is it's always good when non-black people speak the truth about racism. But because we're in a compromised state, what some of us do is they run with that and we start looking for allies, and we start saying, we have friends and allies. No, regardless of how many so-called allies black people get, your focus should never be on trying to make champions out of people who tell the truth about butchery, right? Every human in the world should automatically tell the truth about racism, and just because there's very few who do, you don't turn them into superstars. Like, yes, there's one guy who tells the truth. That's one of the challenges that we have to work on. There you
go. Over and over again in this country, like I said, but so it's the right thing to do. People need to speak out and not make any excuses for this kind of behavior and this violence.
So you said for killing innocent black people, the prosecutor in this case has suggested that there was a racial component to it. Do you believe your grandfather is racist?
Good question.
I believe he holds racist tendencies.
If you ask someone, you can't use certain words on YouTube apparently anymore, but if you asked him, is your grandpa a R word? Will he say he's got R tendencies? It's just this racism word of how people can really not really answer it.
He believes. Why
do you say that?
He's just a stock American Christian male. It's older, that's just how they are. It's the conspiracies and weird random.
You just describe a whole set of people.
Racist things they say, and it doesn't make sense, but they're just scared.
Now, listen, you're generalizing a lot here about, you said older Christian white males, but what do you mean by that? What do you mean they're scared? Talk to me more, please.
It's just, I feel like a lot of people of that generation are caught up in this 24-hour news cycle of fear and paranoia perpetuated by some other news stations. And he was fully into that, sit and watch Fox News all day, every day, blaring in his living room. And I think that stuff really kind of reinforces this negative view of minority groups and leads people to be a little, it doesn't necessarily lead.
We welcome Brother Kel to the broadcast. We put the link in the forum. If anyone wishes to join our commentary, feel free. All black people are welcome, as long as you try to be constructive. Welcome, Brother Kel. Black Betterment.
Black Betterment, Brother Raven. Black Betterment to the Sun people and the audiences.
People to be racist, but it reinforces and galvanizes racist people and their beliefs.
Now, apparently, correct me if I'm wrong, Clint, you said that your grandfather would say or do things, apparently that you did not subscribe to, that caused you to distance yourself from him. Say and do things like what?
That's right. A lot of it was the kind of QAnon level conspiracies about election denying, and then they got really weird with some Fauci dogs. I really didn't know what that meant, but I would push back on some of this stuff, and he couldn't handle being pushed back on. And at a certain point, we kind of lost touch, and I think it was more of his choice than mine.
Did he say or do things that you found offensive about minorities or people of color?
Yes, he would say some things. I think I can't remember exactly now all that happened, but I know he had something about, had a really hot take about abortion and how something about black women getting abortions. And I didn't know what he was talking about, but I said, I don't really want to talk to you about this anymore. This is racist and it's dumb. So let's move on. And I pushed back, and he didn't like that either at the time.
So listen, the Kansas City Star also spoke to your brother. Your brother's name is Daniel Ludwig, and he said it seems like a bunch of mistakes in a row that resulted in a tragedy. I mean, a lot of mistakes all the way around. Unfortunately, if you look at
one brother is saying, he's very, very, very kind. He's saying a lot of racist tendencies, and this kind of stuff. While another brother is saying, no, it's just it's a mistake. Things happen. No racism. It was an accident.
The affidavit, there were actions taken that caused my grandpa's side isn't being reported. And he is saying that your grandfather is not racist. He doesn't believe that.
He can say that. I think he's running defense a little bit. I don't think he sees him for who he is.
Did your grandfather have a gun or more weapons in the house
They were all over. Yes.
So one brother saying no, one brother saying yes. And did he have guns? He had plenty of guns. He also showed a history of anti-black racism. They haven't described it that way. And when a young 16-year-old knocked the door, he said he felt threatened and he shot. So all these things add up. All adds up.
What do you mean, they?
The guns were all over. He had them
Rambo ammo kind of stuff.
stashed in some spots and had a big locker full of them. But yeah, he was ready to defend his home, as he would say.
Considering
Defend his home.
the recent history, I mean, is this a recent history that you found your grandfather? Is that why you pulled away from him? Has he always been this way, or is this something new?
I feel like he's been pretty conservative for a long time, which is fine. But feel like in the last 5 or 6 years, it's really ramped up. He was a huge Trump supporter, and between that and then the galvanizing that people have been feeling lately with politicians and ideologues co-signing, violence and domestic violence, domestic terrorism, and even pardoning people who murder other people for differing political beliefs. I feel like all that stuff has really ramped up his beliefs and radicalized him a little bit.
I'm just wondering, because we've been covering these, and there are usually, not always, there are warning signs. You feel like the warning signs were there. That's why I asked you if this is something that happened recently.
I believe so. The warning signs were there. I wasn't shocked when I heard the news. I believed it.
And he did live alone?
He wasn't shocked that his granddad shot a 16-year-old boy.
Up until recently, his wife lived there, but yes, he was living alone at the time.
Until recently, his wife lived there. She didn't live there.
She wasn't there at the time, no.
She wasn't there. Okay. What message do you have for Ralph Yarl and his family, Clint?
I'm proud of you, Ralph. I'm so sorry this happened to you. I understand you're an amazing kid, and I think you're going to grow up to be an amazing man. And you didn't do anything wrong. The outpouring of
He was a very talented kid. He had multiple skills. His aunt also has I think I got it here. Let me see if I can. This is not. Oh, did I get rid of it like a madman? Hold on. Oh, there it is. There. Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, his aunt had done a fundraiser. Now, I don't know if I wanted to cover this at all because you have to be very sensitive when these things happen, and obviously our main priority is making sure that the young Ralph heals, which he has, which is good. He gets treatment, and he can get back in society and hopefully get back on track. But I think there was some pushback about. I think slightly unrelated, but I think that the lady who did the GoFundMe, she was the lady you saw in the first video, and I think she asked for $2.5 million. I mean, if you can get money, right? And I think they've raised almost $3.5 million, and it's quite a lot. And that's not the reason why I think I'm interested in whatever. Some people might think that because so much money is raised, maybe it might limit how the family talk about racism, because naturally, if you're making that kind of money, the chances are, all types of people are contributing, and maybe it might limit to what you feel you can say. Her name was Faith Spoonmore, and also there's another thing. I think she's from Ghana. I think she's married to a European gentleman, and people are looking at that as well because of the racism case and this kind of stuff. And I think some high celebrities have given quite a lot. I think some comedian lady has given 15 grand. I'll show that in a bit, but that we'll probably jump on that as well. And then I think when I'm reading it now, and I think what it pays for, the $3.5 million is going to pay for. Let's see. It's going to pay for. There we go. However, there we go. Ralph deserves to have a future and dreams about he deserves. He loves to win humanity, blah, blah. However, he will need help to get there. Funds in his account will be used for medical bills and therapy. And additional funds will be used for college expenses, at Texas A&M. You guys in America will know what that is. It's probably very expensive there, I assume. And also a trip to West Africa. Very nice. Wouldn't mind going there myself. And for me, if you can get money, definitely. I think one of the issues is does asking for money in the public limit what you can say in a certain aspects, especially if you're married to a European? And does your husband get anything from that as well? Not that you don't want to pocket watch people. It's never nice to do that, but just something that we might tackle. But then again, we might not. I don't know. But it's there was some hoo ha here and there, more so about the woman who was spearheading it, and as normal when someone's spearheading a case about racism and they're not married to a black person, they always think, okay, is there any kind of thing going on here? But who knows? Anyway, so that's that. We can stop it there, and we're going to go to the where is this? This button? Got one screen. It's not that one. That's the wrong button. It's this button. Right. I have to make everything bigger. All right. Cool. Yeah, I can read now. So we watched the story of Ralph. Thank goodness he's pulling through. He was shot in the head and the body, but he's recovering. Obviously, shock. The European white supremacist said he was scared for his life, which you hear a lot. I don't know if he's been charged yet, or what he's been charged with. We have to really research that. But this, this connects to our question: how do you teach black children about white supremacy? Now, no matter if someone's going to be shot, they're going to be shot. We watch videos, unfortunately, of young children being shot by police, and there's nothing they could do. But what we can do in reaction to that is when and how do you teach children about racism, white supremacy? When is a good time? How do you tell them? Is there books you can give them? Do you tell them at all? Do you brush it off? Did young brother Ralph, was he aware that he was in a country where a lot of people of a certain type despise black people? Now, I know his family are actually from Africa, West Africa. I would say Ghana, Sierra Leone. I could be wrong. And a lot of those brothers and sisters, they're coming from the continent, from an all-black environment. And obviously, hitting America, it's like, yes, this is a land of opportunity. Let's get in and fit in. Let's keep our heads down and learn and try to get far. And maybe they don't know much about white supremacy, or maybe they choose to not know about it because it might, compromise certain things they want to do. Who knows? But nevertheless, whether you're from the continent or from diaspora, regardless of your accent or your language, if you're identified as black and you're in an anti-black environment, you should know. And the question is, how young should you know? So that's the first question we got today. If you want to jump and talk about that, feel free. We're joined by Brother Kel. Brother Kel, any opinions on ages to teach about racism, white supremacy at all?
Yeah, brother, it should be done as early as possible. Most definitely. If possible, the age of 3. Images first. Letting them see the black, let them see the black woman on TV, whether it be YouTube, and the black man and the hair, etc. But if we're going to go in more detail, after 3, perhaps when they get to 5, we should use the analogy of the sprinters doing the 100 meters race, and it should be like the mountain sprinters, the ice sprinters, the sand sprinters, and the sun sprinters. And it should be a thing where like there is a rope which is restricting the sun sprinters, and as soon as the gun is fired for the sprinters to race, the mountain sprinters, the sand sprinters, and the ice sprinters, they're ahead. But the sun sprinters have been restricted by the rope. And the child asks, well, why? And then you can explain at the age of 5 that because the sun sprinters, they always win the race. So they don't want them to win all the time. And then when they get a bit more older, that's when you can collaborate on that analysis and go in more detail. And then explain. But for now, it should be, as I said, 3. Let them see us in a good light on the TV or the YouTube, and then explain when they get to 5, explain the race analogy, and from there build on and get in more detail.
Thank you there. So we have a text from forum message, I say, a comment from Sister Natasha, I'm auntie of 3 young black boys, ages 13 years old and 11-year-old twins. I appreciate you creating a safe space to discuss solutions to how to teach our children. Yes, that's what we're here for. We're here to be high principled and find solutions to all the challenges we find. It is a space for black people to be constructive and find solutions. And the solution we're trying to find now is, how can we minimize black children from being harmed because of racism? And one of the things we're saying is awareness is always key. Sometimes if someone's going to harm you, going to harm you, but know that you're in danger. Know that you could always be in danger is important. So whether that would have fixed this, well, how that might have fixed this particular situation if we had to go back and rewrite the script. And I've got the video of the mother speaking, but I haven't really processed it, so I can't play it. But I think what she was saying was, if I'm wrong, correct me. I think the kids were staying at a house a couple of blocks away, and she didn't want them to stay over. Maybe it was a school there, something like this. So she got the eldest son to go and pick them up. And I think maybe he jumped in an Uber or he used a site nav to go to the house, something of this nature. And but the site nav the names were very similar, and all the houses in these communities look the same apparently, kind of like in London in certain parts. And he ended up at the wrong door, and he knocked on the door, and the suspected white supremacist saw a black silhouette and just started firing until he didn't see movement. I believe that, and I could be wrong, they didn't mention it. I believe he shot him in the head and then shot him again as he fell, but and then he ran. But don't comment on that. Please don't comment on that. But yeah. So the question is, if the family were more aware, would they have sent a young boy in a particular neighborhood to pick up a child? As in that kind of way. There was a time in certain communities, in the black community in America, where they wouldn't have let their kid play outside because of the fear. This is what the cross burnings and this kind of stuff, where they were always on edge because there were stories and things of young boys being kidnapped, and this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's this is why as a community we do that. Now we also segue, which is connected as well. Do black men collectively value building and ownership? So I think the gentleman was on there speaking about one reason why he assumes so many non-black people are fearful of black children and make them 18 times bigger than they actually are is because they watch the media, and apparently the media portrays black people as violent, ferocious beasts, this kind of stuff. So the question, if that is true, then the question is there a value in black men coming together to own media, create media that tackles that? Is there a value? But then the question is, do black men value this? The reason we say this is sometimes when we speak to some black men, or what we describe as unsynchronized black men, sometimes we speak to them on panels and so forth, and there's a complete distancing from any kind of collective ownership. It's not valued. No, sir, not me, not really. And it usually is stemmed because on the Betterment Broadcast, we understand the value of black families and black communities. So naturally, if you want to have a black family, your very first mission is find a constructive black wife. But sometimes some black men are not, best pleased with this. And then you say, well, how are you going to build a black community if you don't have a black wife? And I don't want to build a black community. I'm an individual. And you say, well, do other community men see themselves as individuals? And then they want to free themselves from the conversation. So we're bringing it here because obviously with Betterment we want solutions, and it is all holistic and it is all connected. Telling black children about white supremacy, black men collectively valuing building an ownership, and then also the last question, which we'll move on shortly, is if black men don't pick a black spouse, should that be viewed as them leaving the black community? An idea we tackled last week. Don't know if it's right or wrong or right, but it was said, so we brought it back today. There you go.
You know what, brother? It's very tricky because the Honourable Frederick Douglass did say that it's better to raise strong boys than to fix broken men. Yes. At the same time, you need the parents to be able to do that as well. So that's what I was saying is that, we have to teach them, as I said, when it comes to the racism, they need to know in the form of the race analogy, what I said, those who just come on, is that you need to break down, the 100-meter sprinters, the mountain sprinters, the ice sprinters, the sand sprinters, and the sun sprinters. And then there's a rope, which is holding back the sun sprinters. and the mountain and the ice and sand sprinters are ahead. And the child will go, why are they ahead? Because the sun sprinters are always winning the race, you know. Then afterwards, we should explain it in, because they've been restricted by these groups, mountain, ice, and sand, then they're going to start bullying. And I think the bullying thing for now, Brother Raven, is very good for the children, because children understand when you're not accepted in a group, you're going to get bullied. You know what I mean? So having that base on top of the race analogy for the parents will help a lot. So the child will know you're going to get bullied because they're restricting you from winning the race. So they're going to laugh even though they're restricting you from winning the race. And then when they get a bit more older, that's when we can start getting technical and using more detailed political science. But however, because they're so young, you have to explain it in that way, brother, because then all children know about the race with the hare and the tortoise, you know, and who won the race. So these small little you know, examples and victory will be placed in the child's mind, and they can digest the information, you know what I mean? And then you just build on, and then when they get their political science full of the ice, the sand, and the mountain people, that's when they'll start avoiding, oh, if I play with them, you know what I mean? It's not because they hate me, but it's because they want to win the race. I remember my parents told me that they want to win the race, so, and they'll start bullying. So I need to be around some people that will be able to help me so I can win the race a bit more by collective black betterment. So yeah, definitely we have to focus on the children and the parents as well.
Good. So we're seeing some comments in there. Teach them they're kings, not slaves. There is, funny enough, speaking of kings and slaves and this kind of stuff, there's something going on Netflix at the moment with Jada Pinkett, I believe. She's producing a show about Cleopatra. And I think there's some hoo-ha because Cleopatra is portrayed by a black sister, but they're described as a biracial mix, I believe. And I think they're saying she's half Greek, half Egyptian black, and as in phenotypically. And I think the Arab community, or the Egyptian, sorry, maybe more correct. There's an Egyptian lawyer allegedly who's trying to sue. I don't know if he's ever sued any of the other kind of alleged whitewash Egyptian stuff. Well, apparently, when a black person plays it.
Yes. Yeah, there's a thing going on in Egypt as well. There's a lot of backlash. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of what Kevin Hart did. He became synchronized. That was, you know, until further notice, of course, you know, these our celebrities, they've become synchronized and unsynchronized. But because of that, then now a lot of our people, ever since Richard Pryor done that thing, Brother Raven, when he went to Egypt and he told everything, the Sand people who are not indigenous there, they're starting to understand that, you know, you are not indigenous there. So they're using unethical code of conduct to restrict things. And they've got a thing that if any black person starts to mention that the Egyptians are black, etc., they're going to sue them. So this is part of the warning that they gave. So I think Jada Pinkett is going to be part of that warning, but she should pursue with it because they are black, you know what I mean? And you cannot get away with it. So yeah, I've heard.
Interesting. So we also got one video here of Viola Davis. She's just describing her journey as an actor, and she's essentially complaining, as you would, just about the opportunities. And even though we're listening to this, remember this is connected to the second question, and see if how you can connect it about do black men collectively value building and ownership, and segue to what Brother Kelly is saying about when you're in a race, there's laughing and sabotage, and letting them know that you're actually in a race. So let's listen and see if we can do a case study as we listen.
Is getting paid
Rewind.
what they're getting paid, which is half of what a man is getting paid. Well, we get probably a tenth of what a Caucasian woman gets. And I'm number one on the call sheet. And then I have to go in and I have to hustle for my worth. I have more than a 30-year professional career. I had a friend who said, yeah, but Viola, your career is better than my career. I said, yeah, but you can't compare me to you. Because once again, I got the Oscar, I got the Emmy, I got the 2 Tonys. I've done Broadway, I've done off-Broadway, I've done TV, I've done film, I've done all of it. I have a career that's probably comparable to Meryl Streep, Julianne Moore, Sigourney Weaver. They all came out of Yale. They came out of Juilliard. They came out of NYU. They had the same path as me. And yet I am nowhere near them. Not as far as money, not as far as job opportunities, nowhere close to it.
All right. So they were saying Sister Viola Davis. She's saying that she's gone through the education. She's done 30 years. She's very talented. If you've ever watched any of her movies, very good. And even though there's this complaint about men getting more money than women, she's saying underneath that there's black women making 10 times less than European women, white women, and obviously the opportunities are more plentiful for them anyway. And she's letting the European media know, this is more on. So this segues back into the same question: do black men collectively value building and ownership? Because the idea is that's not really going to change, and you're going to have this 1 or 2 kind of handout concepts, not control black people, but realistically, regardless of what is happening in other communities, there is a value in black people building black stories. So, for example, this Jada Pinkett's doing a production about Cleopatra. I don't know how much of it is her company, or which I don't know who's directing and so forth. But the idea is to have media companies. I know Tyler Perry has one, well done. Media companies, branding, marketing, all this kind of stuff dedicated to black programming that highlights black people, that can actually hire sisters like Viola Davis, who's extremely good, and all the other plentiful great actors you find in Hollywood and all over the world, Pinewood and all those kind of woods that exist. You see, so this is the question, So the question to the don't feel shy. There's no right or wrong. It's just opinions. Do you think black men collectively, as a collective, value building and ownership? What's your views? If you think black men do, say yes. If not particularly, say no. There's no right or wrong answer, although there probably is a wrong answer, but we won't go there. And the idea is, whatever the answer is, the goal is to create awareness and branding so that either continues to be valued or it is start to value. So we have one GOJ that says, yes, black men do value building and ownership. Now, when we are saying build ownership, we are talking from a black perspective, meaning building with other black men to create, and women in here and there, but to create black institutions, black identity projects, black ownership, black wealth, black economics, all that good stuff. I think community building, because sometimes people, they go into other communities and they count that as building, and it is a form of building, but it isn't really community building because you're actually building up some other community, aren't you? So just awareness. Now, sometimes it's very challenging to build in some black establishments because there is no history there and no infrastructure. And what you might have to do is you might have to work in other communities, learn and come back, whatever. But as long as you come back, as long as you are learning and in the back of your mind or the front of your mind, you are aware that there needs to be a considerate effort to work with other constructive black men to build particular things, institutions, ideas. And that should be the goal. And we should support whenever we see that, whenever possible. And we should give them platforms and we should make that a thing. You see, we need to own our own culture. I think that's what you meant. We need to owning our own culture. Yeah, I get that. We need to start owning our own culture. Right again in our shit, bro. Well done. So yeah, it's these are the ideas. Now feel free to jump in if you have something to say. And I guess when we talk about ownership, there's always the woolly mammoth in the room, the black women mammoth, and that is obviously last week and the week before we were talking about the manosphere and this kind of stuff, and does the manosphere are they aware of white supremacy and this kind of thing? Is culture a monolith? I'm not too sure what you mean there. Probably not, I'm assuming. But yeah, so we were talking about the manosphere and are they aware? And we're also talking about, because in the manosphere, for those who don't know, it's a place where men originally were meant to go to fix on themselves and not be what they describe as modern women and try to reform modern women as they described it. But unfortunately, we were seeing a lot of black men promoting not being with black women, which is obviously problematic, you see, from a black culture standpoint.
So, Brother Raven, for example, you've got some said no, and there's some that said yes. Could we show the proof that the ones who are saying no are actually absolutely right, and the ones that said yes are wrong, so it doesn't cause any form of combustion?
Yeah. Well, should we invite them on or ask a question? What should we do with
that? And also from the blueprint, man, like if you could show in it that we are not collectively as black men providing anything collectively for the black woman, because sometimes they say any denial is not just the river in Egypt. So showing imageries and the anger, etc., of these institutions not being provided for the black woman, perhaps is like a proof for them as well as against them. If that makes any sense?
Well, we can. What we can do? Yeah, you're right. As in, it's like I think brother, any brothers who said no, if you're not at work and stuff, or yes, sorry. Many people, I'm seeing a lot of no's. I suspect that. Also, it's interesting to see some men view things different, some women view things different, maybe. But I haven't seen. Could you give examples? Anyone who's saying yes of black men on a bigger scale coming together to do constructive work, build institutions, ownership. There's obviously going to be one or two trying to do it, and we promote them. Of course, we promote them. But is that idea the norm, as we see in other communities? Have we been taught historically to be more subservient, more of a worker? Is that what we've been doing? Feel free to jump in if you have any kind of answer to that. I'm just looking through some things that can help. So this is a diagram here. Could be wrong, could be right. Who knows? For white people's wealth network practice, you see, and we try to make it a symbolic imagery. And unfortunately, the right one there is showing how black people operate. Now, what you're seeing is, let's say that the size of the ball is money, right? If you see this diagram, right? So you're naturally seeing many black people, making big balls, whatever, right? But when you look at the white diagram, realize that bigger or smaller, they're all circling. You see, there's this cohesiveness. It's synchronized. While the black is a bit. Jed, if we check the bottom left of the black one, it's actually leaving the black community, which is the idea. Like, people making isolations and silos, but there's no real cohesiveness. And I think one of the challenges we face as a community is acknowledging that cohesiveness that we struggle with. You see, I know it seems like we're always beating a dead horse, but talking about who black men marry in mass is important, and highlighting when people become either politicians, directors, well-to-do people. Optical stuff. These are optical. Now, people, there's people out there who, the 80% or 75% of black men, and that's great. We want that more than, don't we? We want it to be a thing that constructive black men are looking for constructive black women to start constructive black families and create constructive black institutions. Unfortunately, when they pass away, their stuff is passed down to other black people and it's built upon, and then in 100 years, it's still here and all that good stuff. And there. So we're looking at the screen at the moment, and we're seeing that we've always used UK as a standpoint, but you're realizing that we're always saying that every black politician always picks a European wife. So already that is, we've asked the first question: should that be viewed as leaving the community? Who knows? We noticed that we use sports as another side analogy or just a case study to see how many of the top UK guys end up with black women. With these guys, not that we're begging for their pounds, but if you were born with a black mindset and you made money, could you use that to contribute to building something? Who knows? Are you more likely to do that if you're not part of the community or if you're not choosing a sister? So we do these case studies. But once again, brothers, we've put the link out there for any black man or woman who says that they believe that black men actually value ownership and building this is, we've put the link. If you wish to talk, we want to have a constructive talk, and if you know of any people who might say so, they're always welcome. Because the reason why we talk about this kind of stuff is we're always trying to find solutions, trying to influence those who can to do, you see, and also be a part of the solution ourselves. We also highlight, if you're on the screen at the moment, the two types of black people in the world. There's the conquered class and the conqueror class, right? And what we mean by that is this. Whenever there's a black person talking about the shortcomings as a collective, many people might be offended and they might either go into denial or defense, right? So they fight and they fuss, this kind of stuff, right? Or they flee to us. But the thing is, it's like we will identify that as the conquered class, you see, as in they really once they hear it, it defeats them. You know, they can't take that, and they start seeing it as a negative, which it is. But we're focused on the conquering class, the people who realize that there's a challenge, and when they realize there's a challenge, they rise to it with other constructive brothers who are high principled to work on those particular challenges. And that's what the Black Betterment is about. It's about finding those constructive black people in this regards, black men, because it's important that black men have a leadership roles. Somehow branding has been used to make black men feel like it's not valuable to be leaders, and that's not true. You need to be the first of defense in all people groups. If you don't know, now you know. So we are focused on the conquering class. However, the conquered class are welcome to speak. They're welcome to give their fears and why, when they hear information, they deny it. They want to run from it, because if we can understand why this is happening, we can try to find solutions if it's possible. Brother Kel did mention, the saying that it's better to guide, I guess, young boys than fix broken men and this kind of stuff. But we always welcome.
So, Brother Raven, to be honest, Viola Davis is not the only black woman that has been emphasizing these things, man. It's the black celebrity women and the non-black. So we could say, brother, that the black man who is in denial of this thing is definitely conquered. We could say that, right? He's conquered. So it can't be the black women, because
no.
I mean, why would they just kind of act out a role which is just going to go against them? So something's not right in it, It can't be the black. So it's the conquered black men.
Yes.
That it's a shame, really, because you've got Nollywood as well. If the black man was to focus, and market the institution, you can make a collaboration with Nollywood.
Yes.
All the African Americans, the Afro Caribbeans,
yes.
What I mean? That would definitely wash away Hollywood within a night. But because of conqueredness, I get where you're coming from.
Well, of course. So just before we introduce Empress Kush, let me just add to that, because at a future time we will have to segue, because Europeans control Hollywood and it's a big kind of media. They obviously dictate the kind of films they want to make. And in those particular films, there might be very small roles for particular black people. Now, what you're finding, unfortunately, is all actors from England, Canada, Nigeria, America, Brazil are all going to Hollywood to get these roles. And what's happening now is, because it's such a small role, you're finding some African Americans who think, well, a minute, you're coming over here taking all the roles that's for us. You see? So this is also a potential byproduct of this not building, that you're relying on a small amount of roles, and then there's so many people trying to go for them that people feel like, well, this is the country I live in. Why can't I find the work in my country? But the real solution is building with other black people around the world to create institutions that are dedicated to make black media. We welcome Empress Kush. How's it? Welcome, Black Betterment.
Black Betterment brothers, Black Betterment family.
Black Betterment, sis, Black Betterment.
So, Empress Kush, we asked a question: do black men? Obviously, there's three questions here which you can pick for as a guest. You can talk about what you want. But when you came in, we were asking: do black men collectively value building and ownership? And majority of people seem to say no. But there was one gentleman, I believe it was a gentleman, who said yes. I believe they invite him in, but he might be busy working, this kind of thing. But do you see sometimes when you talk to men and women a different response in that question?
Yeah. Definitely. I think because you said collectively, I think it was just an easy no for me. But I think sometimes maybe people look at it a bit personal.
Right.
And talk about it because they're an individual that is responsible or building within themselves individually. They might just respond to that and not really think of the collective, because sometimes we do view things from our own perspective naturally, and I think we forget that not everybody's made up like us, especially within our community, especially with the betterment mindset. And that's why I always remind other people and myself that just because somebody might look like me doesn't necessarily mean they have the same mindset as me.
Well, we use the phrase here that they're brothers and sisters in my mind's going black now. What was it? I said it a few days ago. In is it biology? In
Yeah,
what was
I
it?
remember that. I forgot
Yeah.
what it was. I was trying to remember.
It's too late now. When I think about it, yeah. But before we get there, there's a brother who's mentioned, we have to unpack this. Black Americans are 13% of our population, so I assume he's coming from the North American side. And the onus on movie making should be on a continent that is 99.99% black. Well, the way we see it, brother, is
Bless up God and Jacob.
oh, is that okay? The way we see it, brother, is collaborations. You'll have certain things that might be more plentiful in America and things that's more plentiful in, say, in the continent. So definitely there's a value in collaboration. But remember, if black betterment's at the back of your mind, it'll be a naturalistic thing to do this. So you won't ever think of who should do what, because you know that whatever is done is in your own best interest. You see? That's the idea. That's the idea.
But I mean, even on that point, we've got to remember that the wealth is considerably different compared to. I mean, they're building. I mean, I think Nollywood is third on the list. Is it Bollywood, then Hollywood, then Nollywood? That could even change now, because that was a good few years it was on there, and it was already on the top 3. So
in quantity, yes, as in the amount of content. I think in the amount of content that's made, I think it was Bollywood then Nollywood. When it comes to profit, it changes. Obviously,
yeah. I think that's absolutely right. Thank you for that, bro. Yeah. And that's important as well. So yeah, I mean, you know, the point of thought of Black Betterment, God of Jacob, you know, and you're always welcome to come to our point of thinking, is that we are all one, right? So, you know, he's right in regards to the population, but imagine what we could do if we could really start independent. I think what the brothers were saying before, independently moving like our brothers in America have started the lead on. You know, we can't forget because of Spike Lee, there's a Tyler Perry, right? So we can give reverence to the build on that, and more we capitalize, which I've heard a lot of. I think even Dave Chappelle was saying it was interested into tapping into the Nollywood market, because he says that with the least amount of funding and resources, they have great stories. And he's saying that, you know, I could just it was a little thing that you could go and watch him say, but yeah, he was definitely, and a lot of them should be doing that, you know. But I like Dave Chappelle because he has a Pan-African mindset. I mean, his logos like the RBG, but yeah. So that's my point on that without rambling.
Two things. It's brother and sisters in genetics and not brother and sisters in ethics. That's
the one. I love that line.
There you go. So remember that one, family.
Established by Black Betterment, by the way.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, Mother Cow was waiting.
What one other thing I just remembered? I see if I can find some stuff. Maybe we might cover it a couple of weeks, whatever. But the brother John Boyega, sorry. Let me type in company. I might see if I can. I understand he's thinking of doing a production company that I think he says specializes in making films in Aramaic and Yoruba, I think, and going to the continent and making and hiring people from around the world to come and do this kind of stuff, right, in this company. Is it? It might be Upper Room Productions. Found it set up in 2007. I want to say that's what it is, but that was something that he was talking about to make that kind of stuff. Reject. I'm just trying to
And
check
that
this out.
makes sense. Like when we talk about that ball game, we're actually behind because the West, BBC, all of them have already got BBC Africa doing things in different countries, BBC Asia, so we're behind on this. So, this can be done and we should be doing something, especially in this climate where everything is changing and how you receive your information is key. So we should be having something that we know is from us and is authentic and truthful. That should be something that, we should have been doing.
I think in that regard, we should really give this brother some props. The reason why I say is because I'm aware that he was on on TV a few weeks back or months back saying the importance of loving black women. And I'm
He
aware
did,
how
yes, he did.
yes, and
Yes,
how
he
many
did.
people tried to shoot him down, and don't know if he had the best defense. That's another thing. Whenever a brother talks about black love and black economics and gets shot down publicly, to get that the social network team to literally just jump to his aid and start
Absolutely.
posting all of the stuff. So we definitely have to we always have to give props when people, because it isn't easy, it isn't easy publicly being constructive towards black women, because like brother Kel was explaining, as we trying to think of ways to tell the children. Many times you find that it's like a race between the different people types, and black people seem to have a rope tied to their back as in this race, and that is part of that process when you try to do something as basic as saying that you're a black man and you love black women, and having the world demonize you for such a basic concept. You see,
if you're a brother, and I think perhaps brothers get it worse from the family within our own community than they do get it externally by having that stance, which is interesting.
What do you mean?
I just find that perhaps men get more of if a black man stands alone and says that, then he has more of a pushback from the men within the same community than necessarily a woman would.
Oh yeah, I agree. If a woman says she loves men, then that you won't really get any pushback, really.
Yeah.
But if a black man says he loves black women, and once again, I think that's a strategy, isn't it? Like I think one thing we always want to see black women do well as a collective and intelligent and learning and stuff. But sometimes what we might miss is deliberate focus is placed on women, so black men lose authority. Do you see? As in, you make it harder for black men to be black men, right? And one of the ways to do that is to focus on the women of the group, and then you try to put all emphasis on them to carry everything. And naturally, it's going to be problematic because at a certain point, black women have to do other womanly stuff, and they can't be defending black. They can't be the defense of black communities. They can't be the front first and defense of black people. And you see that people market like
in their femininity, where they can be a whole wife and a mother, and you're asking one person to literally be both feminine, masculine, constantly. It's just
and this is I saw an advert. I think is it something Mallory and maybe I should try them. I think we played it before where some kind of car brand was sponsoring a black activist in the States, and the whole advert was about black women leading, and obviously they had a few transgendered men who are perceived as women in this particular kind of idea, and it's like it was very emphasis on leading, and I see that. Like I don't necessarily see that too much with other people groups, especially the Asians and the Arabs and this kind of stuff. But with black, there's always this emphasis, and I think at some point there's a smart understanding that if you undermine the men in the group and you create an illusion that women are the defense, then you and I'm seeing that a lot. That a lot of this kind of like role play ideology. Like if you think something is true, we can just accept it as true.
Yeah, that's scary and crazy that is more and more the case now. Like that's actually crazy.
Yeah.
That is true. It's that I think that's just astonishing, and it's worrying as well because these are grown adults that are having this mentality now. It's just because it's easy to go by. Everyone's just letting it pass because like, all right, I can hold that card when I'm ready. Yeah. So I think that's very worrying.
Right.
But you got to remember as well that remember the black man
Mm.
contributed of helping people's movements historically, whether it be religious movements, etc., wars. So they are very aware that if you can control the black man, there's no threat. You know what I mean? So that's why it's very heavy when it comes to us. Because I've noticed as well, like they always have to kind of, well, it's still unethical code of conduct in it. They have to destabilize us by making us inadequate or address or making us be like, from the LGBTQ community or some form of a laughing stock, something as a caricature to make them know that, oh, there's no threat.
Yes.
And obviously, historically, man, like, we've always been the threat and backed it. So, you know what I mean? It kind of makes sense why they try and do things.
I hear that. I think one thing we have to try to do, because obviously when we talk about optics, a lot of people get offended when I say that, it's probably best to not have mass imagery of us harming each other, devaluing our women, not educated, and they go, oh, well, it doesn't really matter. But you have to understand that historically, when there was segregation, Europeans had certain laws in place in the Americas, in England, all over the world, right, where black men couldn't be seen doing anything like kissing their women,
That's
striking
right.
their authority, leadership. They can never be portrayed as kings and stuff. This was actually written into the laws of their media companies, right? And they defend it. And funny enough, we can segue into the Arab culture because, as we just described earlier, what is happening? We understand that historically, Europeans have played Egyptians for hundreds, almost like you could be like since you could say hundreds of years now, because the first movie 1920, like I think the first kind of Egyptian movies they made, and then in those early movies, you saw black people as enslaved peoples fanning the kings and queens. This was their roles. I've got all the DVDs of this old Egyptian stuff and Kemet and Kush and this kind of thing, right? But the kings and queens and the people group are always played by Europeans. Now, from then to now, I haven't seen any kind of law case taken against Europeans. However, apparently the sisters made a black woman the queen of Cleopatra, Egypt film of Netflix, and apparently there's a lawsuit to come and stop this. I think the brother said when Kevin Hart mentioned that the first black kings were black, whatever it was. Hoo-ha canceled the show, end of the world, never, not over my dead body kind of narrative. So when we talk about optics, the Arabs and the Europeans, who, by the way, when they say the Arab slave trade and the transatlantic slave trade, they're talking about those people groups generally, right? But those individuals understand about optics. So does that mean, and it could be wrong, does that mean they might be more collectively adequate in the sense of trying to control their own narrative and make sure the things that they value doesn't get undermined, whether it's right?
Most definitely. That is 100%.
Okay, this is good. So now we're using a social science now, and the reason I say this is obviously we asked the question: if black men pick black spouses, should that be viewed as them leaving the black community? And this is once again part of there's thinking of ways of how to describe things to highlight the challenges that we go through. And another thing that we bring up, but I always bring up now, is identifying, and I always bring up every other week or so, the two historical major ways of how black people and Europeans and Arabs, or just non-black people in general, how they destroy black people in mass when they worked as a collective. This is back in the days when they openly hated black people, right? And I know we have to, and the two things that we're highlighting is the degradation and separation. It's on screen at the moment. This is one strategy. We've highlighted that historically in the Caribbean, South Africa, let me zoom in because my screen's very small. Independence, debt, apartheid, racial segregation, cattle enslavement, imperialism, new imperialism, scramble for Africa, opposition to reparations, lynching, race massacres, medical mistreatment, white supremacist terrorism, war on drugs, anti-black propaganda. This is part of a thing that we're a massive way of destroying black people that we're calling degradation and separation. But unfortunately, because that happened to the Anglo-speaking brothers and sisters who were from these kind of colonies, we're unaware of the other way that Arabs and the Hispanic-speaking Europeans were destroying our own brothers and sisters, and they were using something that we're describing as gentle genetic genocide, Gen 3. And what that was is racial whitening, a black mental, also known as Ham's redemption, a eunuchism where they would castrate black men, and obviously anti-black propaganda. And this happened in Australia, and I'm now putting UK, because that's what Arab world and the Latin world. And the reason I'm saying this is because naturally, I need help with the community of how to brand and make this work right. And it comes down to trying to make black men more collectively adequate in how we react to things. And I need help with thinking that if there was a time in the past, right, where there was a plan by the elite, say Hispanic speaking Europeans, and their role was, we're going to destroy black people by forcing them to be with non-black people. So in 2 or 3 generations, they don't exist as their phenotype structure, right? And how we do that is by making sure that they're not educated well, they don't value themselves, and they can't achieve anything unless they marry one of our, like, the lower class women and men who will then help part of this racial whitening idea that they're trying to push across. Now, we know that was successful in Argentina, and we know it's very devastating in Brazil, right? So if we see that back then it was an actual plan that black people were second class, but still they never really had much ownership, but they were gradually always marrying out at a higher ratio. If that happened, then it was planned. And today we see the same thing. How do we connect the dots? Is there connect dots, or is it just this is just some mad theory that a madman has come up in his room? What's wrong with you? Is there some kind of
how can someone say that? Have you said it to someone like that in that way, and they've still told you that that's a mad theory? Like you connecting that information to current. Someone said you're well off. Like there's no connection here. Has someone said that to you? Have you had that feedback?
To be honest, and I don't like pointing fingers and names, but what I would say
is, you don't have to name names.
Of course not, no. But what I'm saying is, whenever I'm around, and I don't mean to trigger anyone, it tends to be people who are obviously married in a interracial relationship, and this obviously contributes to high anxiety, because one of the challenges many black people can't do is they can't do something and promote outside of that. So that's why you get this kind of like maybe street pimp culture where they glorify that kind of concept because they're doing it. But you try to give them, why don't you promote something else while you do that, and then in time try to fix that, they find it hard. This is the same thing with I've observed with when people pick non-black women or vice versa. Right? They have to promote it.
Yeah.
So they have to, and not only that, unfortunately, and we don't want to really go there, there's many unsynchronized black men, as we tackled a few weeks back, that feel it's necessary to justify that by degrading black women. Does that make sense? Have you seen it? Have you observed this?
Yes, I have seen.
Right.
Yeah.
So when people say, what is your issues with, say, miscegenation or mixed relationships, apart from the whole economic stuff that we need to fix, the real issue is if it is motivating black men to self-sabotage their own women via optically on how they speak and how they make these kind of movements that seem to be dedicated to undermine black women, then this is problematic. And this is part of in my opinion, the Gen 3. This kind of, because part of Gen 3 was the propaganda where you had so much self-hate that you would refuse to be with your equal, your woman equal, and promote that because your life would be better if you did it. Now, a few weeks ago, we followed a brother who was doing this, and he was also part of another scandal where he was hired by a European lady to do some work for her, whatever it is. And when it found out that she's actually a practicing white supremacist, alleged, he was really defending this individual. It was a really good case study. It really was an amazing case study. So the idea I'm asking black people, constructive black people, how is this important? Do we think that trying to create a situation where black men are openly loving black women, because we know there's plenty of synchronized black men who do. We know this, right? This is no secret. However, it's the data, it's the optics. Like, how do we make it? Is it valuable? Is it not valuable? Is this not valuable? Because usually when I go on certain panels and stuff, it's not important, and that's why we ask the question: is do black men value building and ownership? And can you have true building and ownership if you don't actually want to be with a black woman? Is this madness? Maybe I'm speaking some supreme madness there. I don't know, but let me know.
I say that we should sell that product, Brother Raven, as from you know. I mean, for me, it's early in the mornings, isn't it? But we should start selling that product, man. You know, yeah. We'll start selling the product. Most definitely. This product needs to be sold, and as we are Black Betterment salesmen and women, we have to sell this product to our community to help them to get the best product of constructive black man, constructive black woman. But I do like this product, though, Brother Raven, man. Excellent work as usual, man.
And this is why I'm reaching out to the community. If you see value in this, what we're trying to highlight is the two major methods of how black people were destroyed in the world. So very big, very big. So we're quantifying the two major methods of destroying black people that were successful. They were successful, right? And we understand that from the English-speaking people, it was degradation and separation. But today, we're based in the UK, but others around the world take what you need to explain. We're realizing that the Gen 3 that was practiced successfully in Argentina could be happening in the UK, and soon I assume all the Anglo-speaking places, because you can't practice the same kind of rhetoric that you did in the past, because this is now frowned upon to just call black people monkeys, ugly and stupid, and you know, this kind of stuff, and have laws to prevent them from doing stuff. But today you can actually have a scenario where all the finest of our men are taken over our community willingly to go and build other communities, and people thinking, what does that even mean? Hence why we do the data, don't we? We look at all the major sports, all the major actors, all that, and all the major politicians. This is optics, by the way, optics, and we say, okay, with all the optics is showing that, does that contribute? And then when you get the naysayers, oh, this is mad super science from across the cosmos, you say, well, remember, we're saying that black men, unfortunately, at the current time, are collectively inadequate, right? And we understand that anti-black racists, as well as white men, they're collectively adequate in maintaining their beliefs. And in a past time, not too long ago, there was laws to prevent black men from looking powerful on TV. And today, in the Arab world, when a black woman tries to put a black queen on in Egypt, they're trying to sue her, and Netflix, right? As well as the most popular comedian of all time, saying that there are black men who were kings in that country. Banned, don't come to my country again. All this kind of stuff. So we understand that optics is important to the Arab community and to the European community, historically and today, it seems. But to the black community, and we're now focused on the black men because we're talking about leadership, it isn't important. Yeah. So we are willingly doing what people groups have tried to destroy us with strategies. We're willingly doing what they did. Now, I don't know, maybe I've connected dots and I'm gone mad. And maybe it's like we've all gone mad. Or maybe the data is there. And the question is, does this behavior work in black people's collective best interest? If it doesn't, what do we do as a community to market these basic values of constructive black man, being a constructive black woman, making a constructive black family, and obviously then creating constructive black industry, you see? But with this method of Gen 3, it won't happen. Go ahead, sister.
I was just going to say, I wanted to answer your question as well. And two things come up in my mind. So the first one was kind of the conversation that I was listening to in the chats and referring to a previous conversation with Wim and some of the other brothers in the chat. And I was just kind of thinking that in the UK, I think you're going to find it difficult compared to people in the US, because I feel with the US brothers that are engaged in this kind of activities, they still can promote, highlight, even though they might not even see the hypocrisy of it, they'll still kind of highlight black love and promoting black love. And it goes to show that what the brothers were saying, that they were saying that they noticed that with black brothers, they would more likely to go with black sisters if the opportunity was there for them. Whereas in the UK, it's not the same. So I
Right.
think that's where I think you're going to have, again, another dimension in this when you're talking to people in the UK. And perhaps because before I joined the channel, I was in a whole different meeting with like-minded people. And then even when the question came out of my mouth, I then realized the type of people we were talking about. I was like, yeah, you're right. And people do tend to bring in their personal their personal scenarios, whether this one was the savior when no one else was there, like the story that you always say, the great white hope. Or I noticed that then it gets a bit tricky because then we talk about people who might be offsprings of that kind of relationships, people of mixed heritage, and when that ties into it as well. And people over here chucks that in a lot to muddy the waters. When you're trying to promote one thing, there's guaranteed someone to come in to muddy the waters with that.
Yes.
So I think that that's going to be an issue. Well, not an issue. I just think that that is unique to Britain and the Britain kind of argument on this, the pushback on this, the Black UK pushback on this. When you was talking, I definitely obviously agree that you should. I think this is the angle where you should go through, but I've just highlighted the kind of pushbacks that I expected you to get.
Yeah,
I think that. Yeah, but I do think that a good mechanism that I can suggest is, I don't know if you've seen this experiment where there's like a waiting room and there's, say for example, 10 people in this waiting room. They're all actors. And someone comes in and they sit down in the waiting room. That person's not an actor. They doesn't know that. They just think it's a normal GP practice or whatever they're waiting for. You don't really know, but you know it's something clinical. You know it's something public. So the person walks in and then they sit down. And every 2 seconds or every 5 minutes, the group of actors, which is everyone except for this one individual, will get up. Like maybe a beep will go off and they'll all get up, stand up off of their seat and touch their head and then sit down. They'll just do it like they're breathing, for example. And like every time the time was to do it, they'll do this. So they'll do this act maybe 5 times, and to the point where the person sitting down feels very uncomfortable. So then he just assumes and assimilates and does it, right? Because he just looks like the weirdo sitting down, right? So he just keeps on doing it. So as the hours go on, obviously the actors come for their appointment and then go, and a new set of people come. So after a couple of hours now, it's just the individual who didn't know what was going on, and all the actors have gone. But because they've continued this, you've got strangers now getting up at a beep and now doing it. Yes. And what I'm trying to say in that is that, again, what you're trying to say with the Hollywood thing, you can establish something as a rule initially, and if you do something enough times, it becomes habit where you don't even have to say it's a rule. Or you can absorb a habit and see everyone's doing something around you, and then you just look like the odd one, where you just start doing it, where you now set a trend where everyone just does it. That makes sense what I'm saying?
It makes super sense. It makes super sense.
Yeah.
It makes super sense, yes. And I think from the Betterment Broadcast, how we can utilize these ideas and stuff is you create that kind of narrative that works in Black people's best interest. Like we have to, like, it can be very daunting for people to go and talk in public about certain things. But what we can do is give them the tools here, and we can work and refine it here. And then people can come back with their feedback. Like I was speaking at a party, or I went to my friend's house and I said this, and I was talking about Black love, and then some said, "Oh, but what about this?" And then I was kind of like a bit confused, and you know, I kind of I paused for a bit, and then I went with it. So how would you have handled it? I said, "Oh, well, here's how we might have handled it," and then you create a way of operating that works in Black collective best interest. You see, the most constructive, principled way.
It's a brilliant idea what you were saying as well, because if over in the Europe, unethical code of conduct is covert, and in America it's blatant, then as salesmen we have to market in an indirect way, as exactly what you were saying, man. Like if you were to kind of insinuate and plant the ideas of, you know, constructive Black man, constructive Black woman, instead of being blatant as how we would have to do it if it was in America. That's very remarkable, man. Because a lot of people say, well, we can't see the racism, you know, things have changed. But is that what you're saying? It's even though for me, I don't go by the covert, it's one in the same, you know what I mean? But I understand in it like some people, that's how they digest information. So if we make it indirect in Europe and UK, you know, with the constructive and constructive black woman, that would definitely work out, man. Definitely.
And to add to that, this is where a lot of people were shocked and surprised by the starting statement that starts every show, has followed us for every show. But I think if you can actually identify that black people are collectively inadequate, right? If you can identify that in a conversation to anyone, as in like, you know, at the moment, you know, because we've been brutalized for so long and we've picked up so many foreign ideas, we are not motivated to do for self, right? We are in the negative. Yeah, we are in the error prone. We are not operating collectively well. By saying that, it limits the pushback when you try to do something about it. If you change the painting, it's almost like saying like, oh, you know what? I'm not healthy. I'm out of shape. I can't breathe. I'm going to train. You would expect less pushback for them to go, why do you mean you want to train? No, you don't, because you've just identified that you're going through something and it isn't in your best interest and you want to fix it. That is why we say that, unfortunately, black people currently are collectively inadequate. You see, when it comes to working with black people for solutions for black people, ownership, institutions, we don't value this. When it comes to fixing black partnerships, we don't value this. When it comes to valuing optically the black man and the black woman as an actual pillar staple of a community, we don't value this. And the opposite might be more true. So by admitting that we are underdeveloped in these ideas, that the history of white supremacy has been victorious over our mind. Gen-free, gender genetic genocide has been victorious. Degradation and separation has been victorious. Many of our people groups have become subservient to these ideas. If we can admit that, then already, from my understanding and training, you then knock out 77% of the pushback for you doing stuff. Does that strategy make sense to the viewers out there? Because a lot of people might hear this, because I've been in certain places, and when they hear that, there's a lot of problems. And obviously, we were talking earlier today about the two types of black people: the conquered black person and the conquering black person. And the idea is, when you tell the truth about where we collectively are because of systematic white supremacy, when you tell the truth, we highlight that we want the conquering person to actually do something. Yeah, when they hear it, they go, okay, if we're 3-0 down at halftime, we're going to actually put our best foot forward to score 4 goals. You see? That's where it's at. This is the analogy we're going for. This is the way of thinking. What we shouldn't be doing, family out there, is when you hear us saying that we're lost or we're not doing too good, to get personally offended and then fight, flee, and fuss. You know, this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Not to do that. And once again, we understand, because we do have a lot of conquered black people, right? But we're looking for the conqueror black person, the conqueror African. You know what I mean? Yeah. The black conqueror, not the black conquered. Now, there's another saying we say. You say that you either when you try to work out who you're going to build with, there are some black people you work with, and some black people you work on behalf of. So we work with the conquering black person, and we work on behalf of the conquered black person. You see, and once you're conquered and you're doing things that's punching holes in the boat, we can't bring you on the executive level, because you're constantly going to try to throw other people in there. You're constantly going to try to be kumbayarist, and you're never going to stop, because you've been culturally compromised. You see, and this is never good. This is never good. One other strategy that I'm going to start implementing more, and maybe you guys can do it at the same place, is when you go into certain community parties, forums, or discuss panels, and you're talking, and it's just black people there. Whenever you get pushback about constructive ideas, just go, guys, let me stop for a minute, right? Is there any people here who actually wants to work with constructive black people to fix black issues and be dedicated to just black people? Is anyone just here to do that? Get the hands, go, okay, after the show, we're going to talk. And then let's take each other's number and build. And then you go back to the argument, right? You go, okay, now that's done. Let's go back. What do you say? You want to marry who? You want to marry a Japanese person? Okay, cool. Let's talk about that. But then that way, what you're doing is you're letting people know that you're actually going to build. Yeah, you're not here to argue about is it important that black men love black women, this kind of stuff. It's very entertaining and for the optics on the screen to see people shouting, but you let them know that I want to find out who the conquering black people are. And as long as I discover that in this conversation, after I discover that, we can talk about this other kind of stuff, because I know at the end of the show, I'm leaving with these guys to do the work. If you paint that picture, I think that'll be a nice kind of a strategy to highlight who's conquered and who's conquering.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That does. It's like
It's like pull up your hand if you're unsynchronized.
it's like getting the quick sailing, isn't it? And then talking personal afterwards. Because salesmen do that sometimes, man. You know what I mean? They'll get straight to the point. Oh, yeah, I got this knockoff deal, and you'll get it. And afterwards, so how was your day, man? Okay, you done this. So yeah, I like that strategy actually, man. I do like that. Big up to you,
those who listen, I'll try to give you a play rendition, whatever. It's almost like imagine Rap Ravens in some fantastic forum, and we're talking about black love as you tend to do. And I go, we at the Black Betterment broadcast, and we practice a lifestyle Black Betterment, and we value black men and black women come together. And I go, hold on a minute, what about black men who are not with black women? Well, we focus on fixing the black, black man-woman dynamic relationship, and that's our area of interest, and that's what we're doing, and we value black economics and stuff. Oh, but hold a minute, are you saying that I have to marry a black woman? I go, well, hold a minute, bro, listen. For all the people, the guests here, is there any men or women who value black love, as in you want to marry black people and you want to build with black people? Can I see your show of hands? Okay, so out of the 10 people here, we've got 3 people. Okay, you 3 people, you actually value black love. Is it okay if we talk afterwards so we can actually build something? Cool. Let's go back. Say again what you're saying. You move back to the show, but you're highlighting at that day how many people are actually willing to do it. And I want to see as time goes by, do we see a more showing of hands? If not completely from the get-go. To establish also something we want to prove is that actually in a room, everybody's on your side, but it's just the naysayer that's taken up all the time. That's very important as well. Very important. Right?
Could we say then, Brother Raven, that once we've done that, then that's when we introduce slowly but surely the Black Betterment Builders and the the other one. Yeah. Yeah, that's very important, man. Very, very important.
So family, what we're doing
better
is there's 2 types. Whenever you practice the lifestyle of Black Betterment, there's 2 types of operatives, 2 types of ways of operating. Now, some people they say black belt and white belt as an idea, but let me see if I can find it here as the diagram. It's somewhere else. Let's see. Give me 17 seconds.
But the thing is about that is, bro, there's definitely a space that what you've been able to capture and label is needed, but how would you say that in a dynamic where you need to get that through quickly, right? In a normal scenario, you'll be talking about something, and then because hit dogs holler, it'll be the person who you are talking about who would or is around that kind of area will talk, right? So they'll say, you can't say this about me. What if I want to do something, right? But you're in the middle of a conversation with someone who is legit for black love and wants to move on that level, right? But you've also got to acknowledge this individual. So for them, is it a builder or I'm sorry, my phone, so it's very small.
So there's 2. So there's the Black Betterers and the Black Betterment Builders.
So how would I be able to, in order for me to say, okay, you're a black betterer, so we acknowledge you, but you'd have to be able to break down what a black builder is and the dynamics and what separates the 2. Do you understand? In that short space of time with these kinds of individuals who don't get it. So instead they just comprehend as, you're just going to chuck me away then and do it. And then of course now everybody listening is like, well, we can't chuck this one away, and I've got this in my family, and now the whole conversation you know what I mean? The poor man that's trying to say one thing to that one individual is now getting chucked. This is what I said before, right? It's all the personal elements. Well, what about this and what about that? And the one message that this brother's trying to, or this individual's trying to get through, woman as well, that's going to get through. you're now trying to put down emotional fires. Do you understand? And you see.
So for those who are new who don't know, let them know the strategy. Basically, historically, what you find is many pro-black B1 Pan-Africanists of certain persuasions, they were so intense with their kind of betterment stance and stuff that they would work in silos. And unfortunately, people wouldn't create false marketing that they're aggressive, angry, and not inclusive, this kind of stuff, right? So what we try to do here is we try to create a scenario where you have a person who can be a part of something who's very dedicated and intense, while someone who's very shallow. The word shallow is very not good word. It's very new and entry level, right? So we came up with two ideas, which is the black betterers and the black betterment builders. So let's break it down. So if you practice the lifestyle of black betterment, here are the two kind of there was a word I used at the beginning of B, I thought was quite good. Bundles. There you go, bundles. You know, we get internet package, right? Two kind of bundles, right? So the black better bundle is this. If someone who's dedicated to black love, marrying black people, dedicated to black economics, teaching black people important skills, joining create black networks, promote black betterment, promotes high principle behavior for black people. As in, your entire life is dedicated to how can black people benefit from everything I'm doing. If you were this way inclined, right, and obviously the key ones are black economics and black love and this kind of stuff, right? You would be seen as a black betterer. That's your job, yeah? But the thing is, if you're someone now who wants to do all that, but however, you don't want to be with a black woman or a black man, depending male or female, and there's some other fact you're not really too on, well, then there is a role for you, and that is a black betterment builder. And what that person does is in one activity in the world, a minimum of one, they have some kind of thing that is dedicated to black people. So the example might be, every Sunday you teach black boys how to make motherboards or grow apples, you know what I mean? But it's specific, as in, I'm going to teach this black community here to do this thing, or I'm going to go to this black community here and do this thing. And that way you can be perceived or called a black betterment builder because there's a particular thing you are doing. You're not a betterer, right? Because your life isn't dedicated to complete blackness, right? But you are doing significant things in a particular individualistic way, which is very handy. And the idea is, because we're in the world today, for example, when you look at the screen, especially in the UK, all these brothers here, let's look at all these brothers, where are we? Here, see? These are all football players today, and they're going to live in the world, they're going to do what they're doing. And this is, so right now we know that 39 football players who play for England so far have white wives, pretty much white wives, while 7 have black. There's probably 1 or 2 missing, but this is what from my research. If you have more research, let me know. So we understand that the drive to be with non-black women is very high, through the roof, right? And it's normal. But the thing is that at some point they might watch a DVD or something where they want to do some kind of black constructive thing, but they're already integrated. Maybe they work for a European man, they're married to a European woman, they're on a contract that they can only go on European magazines, and they've got PR people say you can never mention the word black on this kind of station. It's a nightmare, whatever. But so they obviously can't practice black betterment at its highest echelon because before they knew about such a brilliant idea, such wonderful concepts, they've already become integrated in behaviors that's not in their best interest, right? So to these brothers and sisters, we offer them black betterment building. All right, brother, all you need to do is pick one activity that's for black people. Every Friday while you turn up and you teach kids how to make kites or woolly jumpers or whatever, I don't know, you name it, right? Just pick something that's constructive, right? And make sure you tackle black people. It's for black people. You have to know that, because if you don't know that, what happens is you go, okay, I'm going to let, and this happens all the time, I'm going to let the Chinese man, the Arab man, and the Asian guy join this black betterment concept because we're all one family. And then before you know it, because of how we are, unfortunately, black people see, go, I'm not interested in that because I don't care about whatever. So you go, okay, let's just let more Asians and Chinese in. And before you know it, you're a football player with a white wife doing a black betterment computer course. And in your course is 30 Japanese people. You see? That's what will happen. It always happens. How do I know this? Because I do so many black betterment work, and then they have anyone can come along because we all want to play Kumbaya. And before you know it, 80% of people are not black.
So then, Brother Raven, then we're gonna have to, because Sister Kushti is right, and I agree with everything, of course, man. We're gonna have to be a little bit more diplomatic. So if we were to use certain question skills, like what's that thing years ago, the neuro-linguistic program, where you ask questions that will get more detail in a very relaxing way. So the African descendant who's in the interracial relationship, while you're speaking to them comfortably, they will let you know that, oh, I'm in an interracial relationship. And then by getting that information, you know, you use that same thing. Oh, so you do this as a trade for your job. And then you explain them. And then perhaps if we was to say, well, because of the loyalty of the black woman and her helping out and her contributing with femininity, is that we want to give back to her by making sure that we marry with her. Do you understand what I'm saying, brother? Because one thing what Sister Kushti says, right, emotions, brother, is very powerful, you know. In truth, we should be able to just do this, but because you're not with a black woman, you're in that category, and those who are with the black woman and the black man in there, but that is gonna cause division, because automatically they're like, well, that's not fair, and then sabotage. So it has to be channeled and worded correctly. So the African descendants who are in a biracial, interracial relationship, sorry, you know, which I don't agree with, as long as they understand that, you know, you've done good with your career, but at the same time, you know, not personal, but we want to give back to black love, and it's done correctly, then it can synchronize. But if it's not, brother, it definitely will literate intense emotion, which will cause saboteur at the back of the mind or the front of the mind. You know what I mean?
I just wanted to look at the chats, and if that's okay, unless you wanted to go back on what Brother Raven, Brother Cal was saying. Okay. I just saw a point on here that I wanted to push back on from the Jacob. So he says, so you're basically limiting someone who is actually black. Your concept regulates black. And I don't think this is what I think can get messed up, because this is not in regards to someone's blackness. We have no right to dictate or say who's someone black is. That actually goes against what we stand for. What this is in regards to your consciousness, and us to actually establish who we're dealing with from the off, and having it labeled makes everything flow and productively move quicker. Once we identify them and place a name on them, it helps people who are of like mind establish who that individual is, so we can move on and or address them collectively without getting into what they do. The number one weapon against us, which is confusion. So for example, if you had somebody who dates out and then says that they're pro-black or black betterment or a black builder, am I correct there, bro?
Yeah, the black betterment builder and a black betterer, they're the two titles.
So but a builder is
particular picking particular things to do of one or two nature, you know.
Okay, so say if you and in this case would be a black, if you profess to be a black betterer, which would be the equivalent, quote unquote, as pro-black, but this one's more defined, right? So if you're gonna, in this case, say that you're a black betterer, but then you date out, that could not happen here.
No, it can't
happen.
This
is so this is what I'm trying to explain to the comment, because we're not establishing if they're black or not. We're not doing that. What we're establishing is their consciousness, and what we're doing is what I was saying is identifying something and putting a name to something that's never been there before. So the individual who claims that they're pro-black and they're all black, but they have a whole bunch of contradictions because they do a lot of things outside of the community, Brother Raven is labeling them a black builder, whereas yes, you do certain things in the community, but you also, we can hide, we all can see, and we need to acknowledge that there can be some contradictions there, right? And so that makes exactly, so that's why we have a name for each right? So that's why you're a builder, whereas a betterer would be someone who professes that they're what would be classed, what most people would class, quote unquote, as pro-black, right? This person actually lives the life as someone who is pro-black. So now when I'm in a converse with someone and I'm talking to either Brother Raven or Brother Cal, I can say, well, this person that you're talking to, bro, is a betterer, and this person is a builder. And off the bat, they know that the person that I'm referring to, who is a builder, is someone that at some point in their life, they have something compromising. Either they day out or they're doing something compromising or whatever. But off the bat, they know that now, without me having to break that down clearly, without that brother having to go down a rabbit hole to gather that. So what Brother Raven's done now is that he has now been able to give each individuals a label. Yes. It's not saying that each individual, it's not saying that any one of those people are less black. No, what we're saying is that their consciousness differs.
Yeah, you're quantifying action. You did a great, beautiful explanation there. That's why you're very well. Round of applause for that one. So we're quantifying efforts, you see, and it's recognizing people is important, because I've been in so many scenarios where you go in there and you've got an agenda and you can't even get to your agenda because you say one or two things that triggers anxiety. But if you know that you're not amongst peers who share the same kind of ideology, then there's no point, you see. But there's clear direction of what is what. You're right, Brother GOJ. We can never question a person's blackness. That's not where we don't do that. But we can just establish who wants to do a particular agenda, who wants to do a particular thing, and who to work with, if that makes sense. But feel free, Brother GOJ, to jump in.
Brother Raven, I just want to say something quickly. There's a comment. There's a comment in regards to
Cal. I've just posted the link in there, so everyone feel free to jump in if you like. Go ahead, Brother Cal. Sorry again.
Yeah, I was going to say that there's a comment about using the neo-linguistic program can be very manipulative, and I will say is that it's very, very important that a black betterer builder or synchronized African descendants finds out what type of African that we're dealing with, if they're synchronized or not. Because if we don't find out how you think, they will sabotage the whole movement. Remember, there have been a lot of assassinations, executions by a lot of people who look like us. So for myself and other people, they may say, oh, this is very extreme. Well, in my everyday life, like every synchronized black person trying to be, is that I need to know how you think, because I can't just let you in certain projects, what we do on the continent, or let you know information, because your dopamines may not be validating for the best interest of our people. So finding out if you're with an interracial relationship, because we know already, as we said, Father Divine, Brother Raven, you know what happened with Father Divine? He married a European woman. He was doing wonderful things with the community after the Honorable Marcus passed away, and then he led them into socialism. We know that when we're with non-African people, it limits our progress. They seem to control because they're overseers, and then we sabotage everyone. So I won't say it's manipulative. It's more thinking about the best interest of the race, that we have to find out what type of African you are. Are you synchronized or you're unsynchronized? So I hope that is understood. But big up to the chats.
Big up GOJ. Welcome.
We in the building. Welcome.
All right, brother. Is this your first time on the panel?
I'm not sure. Let's just say yeah.
All right, so this is treated like you're new, and so basically what we're talking about is we're trying to establish ways to identify people so we know how to operate with them, so we can do bigger tasks. Is there anything that we've said? I think you were when we asked let's go to the first question.
Welcome, Brother Brother Jacob. Sorry,
chairwoman, you know how I get down.
I'm not
devil's advocate.
Big up.
What's up, Kev?
So the question we asked, brother, was, do black men collectively value building and ownership? And you said that from your expertise or your know-how, that black men as a collective value building and ownership. Is this what you're saying, bro?
I absolutely believe that.
Excellent. Where have you seen this being practiced? Just so we can observe it and document
I've seen it with my own business in my own building with other people who are like-minded like me. I've
Nice.
seen it with black women and black men.
Would you say that brilliance that you saw in your building is a collective thought across, on average across, say there are black people in America? Would you say that that's what you see?
Yes, I believe every black American that I've come to, even from a small dude
Mm,
coming up, we all have that 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 mindset of wanting to build and on.
mm,
However, conditions,
right.
you know, or stumbling blocks placed in front of us don't allow us to, live out what we actually are. Again, you remember 60 years out of slavery, black America had Wall Streets all over this country,
Very
not
true.
villages and we had cities, real movie theaters and everything. So
True.
that entrepreneurship has always been with us, brother.
No, I can't question the inspiration that we saw in Black Wall Street. It speaks for itself, and it's definitely a template that we use to motivate people to go back to that past greatness. But would you say that when Black people speak today, Black men more particularly, that you get the sense that these men are going to work with, they want to work with Black men to build Black-owned institutions, Black-owned buildings, Black-owned concepts, Black-owned media? Would you say that's the actual thing?
If I had to put a percentage on it,
Yeah.
I would say 40% of us believe that way, right? And that's a
Mm,
low number, right?
mm.
But for me, that 40% is an uptick from 5 years ago. It's just based on me.
Now, brother, that's good. What you said there is if we can track progression, we can't make fun of it because, like I said, you can only take one step at a time. Let me ask you this: if you were to, so you're in America, right? When
I
you
am.
compare Black people to say European people, which of the people groups would you say value ownership more from optically from what you see?
I would say
Do you mean
all
the black people?
Black people and white people, yeah, from your standpoint.
which
Okay,
group
fine.
are you asking me which group values ownership? Is that what you're asking me?
Which one seems to optically and publicly value ownership and building
Of
more
course, the Europeans, and they should because they have access to capital that we don't have to. So they
Okay,
should.
no, you're good. You've done
Right.
that's good. Next one. When you compare the Black community to the Hispanic community, which one do you see values building more between the Black people and the Hispanic community?
I would have to say, whew, which community are you talking about? Because
Well, because usually you have the census where you take Black, Asian, Hispanic, and these kind of stuff. So the Hispanic community in the Americas operating as one. Do you see that people group practicing ownership more so or less so than the Black community?
I would have to say no on that because Hispanic, I know it's an umbrella term, but Puerto Ricans don't think that way. You get what I'm
Okay.
saying? And
What about Asian? What about Asian then? Let's go to
Latinx.
the Asian.
say again,
Say sister, you say something?
I think, are they not referred to as Latinx or something?
Latinx. Okay.
no, they can play both sides of the fence. Whatever is politically convenient, they can tap into that.
Well, let's leave them behind for now. What about the Asian community? The actual Asian Asian from like Japan, China, that kind of what about them in the Americas? Would you say they value building and ownership more or less than the Black community?
They value two things: segregation and that which you have spoke on. You can have a Chinese person who lived in America 50 years and don't speak a lick of English, right? They value segregation and that in which you spoke of. Yes.
So would you say that they value building and ownership at a higher ratio than Black people?
Yeah, if you take into account their numbers, yeah, they have to operate like that.
Right. So what I'm trying to say is when we look at all the people groups, and let's pretend the Hispanic doesn't exist or the Latinx, we're noticing that even though we might be satisfied with how Black people are operating when it comes to trying to rebuild and own, when you compare them to others, I'm not going to say not saying what's delivered, but the longing to deliver, you see that other people groups seem to have a higher capacity for this kind of stuff and more consistency. Not only that, what I observe in Canada, America, and the UK and all over the world is people from those communities actually being in the Black community, being owners of buildings and institutions that Black people frequently visit. So that will kind of tips the data because what we observe is there are smaller, say, Asian communities that have Asian shops, and there are bigger Black communities that have Asian shops. So when you see that, you realize that one community seems to value ownership and building at a higher capacity than, say, Black people. Would you say you observe that as well, brother?
I would say your data is going to be skewed a tad bit, right? Surface level, you can pull that off. But when you throw into the variables, you get what I'm saying? Then you would have to question your surface data, i.e., the black community in America is the most preyed upon community in America. All right, we are the commodity for everything. Prisons, unemployed, everything. We are that targeted.
I agree.
Group. So there's going to be variables that kind of frames this data. So I mean, if you want to play surface data, you have a point.
Right. So let me ask you this then, brother. So when I say this, and remember, I'm saying this about black people as a whole across the diaspora in the world and so forth, right? Because we see similar behavior patterns towards all black people because of anti-black racism. But are you saying that when we look at this, are you saying that that you are actually seeing black people in mass at the same ratio as others trying to have high value in building and ownership? So you're saying you see this and you're satisfied. Are you satisfied with the outcome of seeing that? Are you satisfied?
Yes. Contrary to popular belief, the black American is actually doing good over here, right? But what the world captures is our I hate to cuss, but our fuckeries, right? But as a collective, we are doing good. Can we do better? Absolutely. But we're not down and destitute like the world think we is.
So, brother, everything I say is never directly about black.
No, American. I get that, but I'm just trying to frame the picture as
the reason and here's the next thing. If you were losing you play basketball, right? So let's say you're at halftime in basketball and you guys are losing, say, by 40 points, all right? Would you prefer to know that than actually believe you're winning? Just as a random question.
Of course, I would rather. Come on, brother, you got to ask a better one. Set me up. I understand what you're trying to get to, but give me a better one.
The challenge that when it comes to data, the challenge is, and also what we observe with black communities all over the world, we did a show about, is knowing how to what's the word? You can live within a struggling environment and you can culturalize it, so you can actually adapt to hardness, right? And what happens is you can sustain a food, you can sustain it for long periods of time. So what happens is you're not actually aware that it's 3-0 down. You just see it as 0-0 and it's a friendly, we're kicking about. And that's the challenge that we're trying to highlight, that if you're not aware of these challenges, you won't compete. And that's why I say, brother, if right now you're saying black Americans are doing good, in your context, right? If black Americans wasn't doing good, how would that change your philosophies and operations after knowing that information?
Right. First and foremost, man, my reality is my reality, right? And that's why I don't try to, do the all black is black thing. But how would it change my reality? We speaking from a hypothetical point, which I usually don't entertain. But if we were doing bad, as you're trying to set this situation up, then of course I would buy in to what you're kicking. You understand?
Well, not buy into what I'm kicking. I'm saying that today, let's just pretend, like the Matrix, they take the pills, this kind of thing, right? Let's say that you wake up and in your mind, black people are hired, they own media stations, they own magazines at a high ratio, they control all kinds of devices that promote constructive black awareness and also black employment and black betterment and black love. You're aware of this, right? And then one day you actually, you tap on a window or whatever it is, and the window breaks, and you realize it actually wasn't a window, it was a monitor, and someone's just been feeding you a reality of data that isn't actually true. Once you realize that, what do you do next?
You try to correct that, David. You do a good strength and witness analysis, and then you get to fixing and resolving the issues that's
so would you say you try harder than you did prior when you didn't know there was a problem?
You try harder in everything, brother. In that scenario, if you're drowning, you're going to try harder to stay alive. So in any situation where you're going under, you're going to try harder.
Right, excellent. So that's what we try to do here, bro. We try to really spread the awareness of the actual data and how things are perceived or actually done. and then try to find strategies to do it. But sometimes, brother, we have to face hard truths. And what we try to give people analogies or ways of processing that doesn't defeat them, because we understand that some people are more, their emotions or their passions are so high that if they believe or conceive that a black person isn't doing well, this could destroy them. But we're saying there are ways of processing information that can still empower you to know that. And we identify two types of black people: the conquered black person and the conquering black person, right? And that's what we tried. And we tried to find the conquering black person. And we're saying is, if the conquering person was aware that their community is not developed or doing as well as other communities, by nature, they will try to work with other people in their community to find solutions. And that's what we look for. But what we do try to help with is if someone is somewhat delusional or has the wrong kind of information or reading things in a way that isn't beneficial. And that's why I ask, like, are you best pleased with the ownership of the black community where you are? And I can say I'm not.
Right. But check this out. Attached to that hard truth is a hard reality, right? And where I am and where you are, our realities are different to a certain degree. Would you agree to that?
110%, yes.
110%. See, we still dealing with numbers. 110%. So we can't diagnose every single black group, right?
No, well, let me break it down for you to make it easier for this conversation. We recognize that different brothers and sisters will face challenges no matter where they are, but there are constant recurring themes, right? And what we're saying is, if certain philosophies are embedded in our head, that we automatically work with black people to fix black people, and we control black ownerships, and we promote that, and we find solutions everywhere we go, and we make it an actual lifestyle. It's something that we do that's just ingrained into our every fabric, no matter where we find ourselves. Then whatever particular challenge you face as an African American or a Canadian American or a UK Black British citizen, whatever it might be, or a Nigerian in Nigeria, whatever it might be, when you accept these realities, you will automatically try to find solutions. So you're automatically looking like, okay, I'm looking at the TV at the moment, and I'm realizing that there's a lot of adverts that's not showing a constructive black man, a constructive black woman. I need to control media to do that. I'm realizing that when I look at my children on this block, many of them are not maybe as advanced as other people's children that say technology or biology or whatever the value is for the particular community. Because I have a black betterment mindset, I'm always looking at things from that paradigm, meaning I'm looking how good are we achieving, look at our grades collectively, right? Now, because black people are, part of the philosophy is acknowledging that collectively black people have no friends. So we will be the most despised people group on the planet. Therefore, meaning every people group will try to destroy black people in one frame or another. Because we're aware of this means we must try twice as hard, right? But if we're not aware of it, we won't even try to do that.
Yeah, I hear you. Listen, mother, I've been a military man for almost 22 and a half years. And my first time, we had what's called a battle group. And to effectively accomplish that mission, we had to detach from that battle group, independently steam, right? So that's what we need to do. I should focus over here, do your thing over there, and then come back to that body when it's time to head back to where we need to go to. But you have to independently steam at times to meet that objective.
Brother, I could agree with you more. Now, if you look at the diagram at the moment, what we're saying is wherever you find yourself, you're looking for other people who practice what we're describing as black betterment, which is black people helping black people on black issues. And then what that is, you then create a fellowship, right? As in with those particular things. And in that fellowship, you then try to create media companies, businesses, and education. Yeah, with that philosophy, and you're tied together by you value black love, you value black economics, you want black people to win. But what we were saying before you jumped in was making a distinction between black betterers and black betterment builders, meaning black people who are 100% on black people, while black people who are in pockets, like only in education or only in visuals or whatever, right? And then these are certain strategies we're thinking. So in USA or Canada, wherever you might be, you can do this. You can find other constructive people, which it sounds like you're doing already, hopefully, right? And you create fellowships and ideas to improve the reality in your area. And then what will happen, we will do it here. And then what will happen in some kind of, you know what? We need to expand and we want to bring someone from Canada, America, Australia, wherever. Well, there's those brothers who create that fellowship over there. Let's invite them. Or they've made this product over there. Let's actually buy that in bulk and promote it here. And then you start building, kind of like Chinatown. Chinatown's a good example. where Chinese people go to certain areas and they build up, and then they have an economic base that they draw from, and then at a certain point there'll be networks of other Chinatowns all over the world, this kind of stuff. But I guess the key of the instruction is understanding where we are, and that we acknowledge being collectively inadequate, not because we like pain, but by knowing we're 3-0 down by half time, we can score 4 goals, but before full time happens. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. But I also say this: you have to know what you're working with, and you have to know your strength. You have to have the numbers. I think what you're saying is absolutely good, but I think that message should be promoted and preached to the strength, the number, i.e. Africa. You get what I'm saying? That message should be on that continent, just going out there, because like I said, that continent is 99.9% black. All right. And I think that continent should be the face of what you're talking about, not these little groups that's 13% and 4% and 2% here. We shouldn't be the target audience, right? The continent should be the face and HQ, the body, right?
We can agree to that, but unfortunately, because of how certain scenarios happen, for example, by being the descendants of enslaved people at close proximity to anti-black racism, there is an understanding that people from the diaspora will have a greater ratio than, say, people on the continent, right? Also, access to certain kind of institutions or ideas or new philosophies, whatever, we'll have it firsthand by being close. So we can utilize these disadvantages that are actually advantages to work. And at a certain time, when we get our things together, we can network with the people. But remember, regardless of where a black person is in the world, there's always going to be 2 types of black people: the conquered black person and the conquering black person. So the question is, I'm saying something, whether you're in Africa, Canada, wherever, if you agree with it, we can network on that point. But if someone's constantly naysaying it, it's not going to happen, then they won't be right for it, because that's where their mind is. They're part of the conquered class, right? So on the continent, that information works for the conqueror, and they will do that to do what you're just saying. But we don't have to speculate, because we're trying to find those individuals. Before you speak, welcome, brother IC3.
Greetings, panel. Greetings, panel. Greetings,
my
chat.
OG, what it do?
The military man, God of Jacob.
Lead, follow, or get out the way. On time, on target, never quit.
Black Bearman, everyone, Black Bearman. So,
okay.
There you go. Did you want to
ask a question?
You can ask questions, brother. You can ask questions.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure what it is, but there's something fundamentally that we don't agree on, but I don't know what it is. I just sense that there's something it's not clicking.
Could be it could be miscegenation, brother. It usually is.
Is what?
Miscegenation.
It's what? What's that?
Miscegenation is where people who are from different, what they class as races, marry each other. I find at the heart of, and it's just my research, I find at the heart of if I have to be honest, I think the starting problem with black men, and just from my research, which could be skewed, is the high longing for non-black women. There's many black men who love black women, of course. We cannot undermine synchronized black men. But I think that this might be the only podcast, from my awareness, in the UK at least, that actually talks about black love. And it's one of it's the black woolly mammoth in the room, you see. And I think
right.
The reason why I have to talk about it is because there are many men who believe that you can actually create some kind of movement by not marrying your own people group. And at first, I made philosophies where we could ignore that, but I'm realizing that the more you understand economics, ownership, and optics, the more you understand those things, it's actually probably the most primal thing of all time. So naturally, when I look at the history of strategies to destroy black people that were successful, and we use Argentina as our example, that the G3 gentle genetic genocide was practiced, and I'm seeing that behavioral pattern in the UK as well as other places, but we're focusing on the UK now. And if you ask me what is one of the biggest challenges of trying to fix black issues, I would say not existing. The reality of not existing is there. The reality of not existing.
Okay. So, right. So now there seem to be 3 sectors.
Go ahead.
Right. The 3 sectors are the one which I think you're covering, which is miscegenation.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's one sector. Then there's another sector which is the language of identity. So let's say like the America or the diaspora, it's about whether you want to identify as black or not. Well, the diaspora accepts black as a unifying identity, but the continent does not like the term black. They just reject it all out. Yeah. So you got the Americas and the diaspora. We just use the Americans as the example for all of us in the diaspora. It's black power.
Yes.
In on the African continent, it's tribe. Don't talk about black. We're not interested in black. It's about tribe and clan. So if you want to work with us, if you want to get us to organize together, respect our tribes and clans.
Yes.
And then you have this other entity or other issue, which is the mixed race question. See, so we've got the mixed race question, which is what you're digging at there. Then we've got the black question, and then we've got the African question.
Yes,
So we've got these three nodes here.
Yeah.
So the mixed race question is seen from the African node in a different way, because they say, wait a minute, mixed race, there's no such thing as race. We don't accept race. So there's no mixed race. There's just African. Yeah. And then you got the people who accept black identity in the diaspora. They understand mixed race as mixed race. So they'll accept mixed race, and they will either say that well, let's they don't see mixed race as a problem, or that mixed race or how to manage it. How do you deal with the issue of mixed race from a black perspective, and how do you deal with the issue of mixed race from an African perspective? And you cannot mix them together.
Well, actually, we use a strategy known as the synonym star. Yeah, the synonym star. Sorry. The synonym star. It's on the screen at the moment. If you see it,
right, okay.
What the black brown with documents, we're saying that these words mean and include these groups. Yeah. So black betterment also means Aboriginal advancement, Ethiopian advancement, African advancement, Negro nutriment, Nubian nutriment, Moorish management. Yeah, it's synonymous. It's almost like I'll have to do a document later, but Coca-Cola in Ethiopia is called something else and said something else. But when you look at it, it's both Coke, but they call it something else. But the brand is the same, which is different shapes and different stuff, right? Same here. We can have different words for different people. We can also have include people. When they use the term London and Greater London, we can have black and greater black, right? But with our documents, because we've got the star, we actually have a registered list of all black tribes, people, terms and words that can be included in the document, and we accept the biracial offspring to be allowed to practice black betterment in there. And the reason why is because we're aware of genital genetic genocide, Gen 3, we know that the enemies of black people have a strategy of how to not pay reparations or how to destroy black people is to make sure we're not here to actually try to get them, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So the idea is they practice. So we're saying that this concept that they invented called racial whitening, we can say we understand what racial blackening is, in meaning you can reverse if you're seen as what they call mulatto or whatever it might be. You're welcome to practice black betterment and marry a black person, right? Now, whether you want to call this person or they want to call themselves this, that, we're not include that the cinnamon star carries that, right? But here on this document shows all the tribes, and this will update as time goes by, all the tribes historically who were labeled black, right? And then we're saying, it says Mount Vernon, but we'll say black Berman, we'll recognize biracial offsprings of any of these groups as black people or black heritage people, right? So that's how we operate. We actually have a list And if you're part of these tribes of this list, or you have a parent who's that way, you can. I think is it Liberia? No, Liberia at the moment. Before they reverse it, they have like, if your grandma's a Negro, you're welcome to come to stay and be a Negro.
Right,
because that was the law then. Because they knew that, like I said, if you look at the screen at the moment, the Europeans, when they were trying to destroy black people at a high ratio, they had methods of determining who was non-white and who was still connected to black, regardless if they call black or not. So we understand that here. You see the Octoroon, and they said after the Octoroon, you can then be seen as a low-class white person. You see, and they demonstrate that with some of the most famous. There we go. We see this with the first African enslaved lady, and then she obviously had a son who was famous, Mr. Damas. And then he had a son who wrote the
Okay, that's good. Okay. All right, so that's good. I understand that. That's good. I like the way that you've actually put all the tribes and say, okay, from your perspective, from the Western perspective, these tribes, you understand them to be classified as black. Now,
from the black Betterment perspective, we should say.
Yeah, from the black Betterment. Okay, so how do you speak to the Africans now? How do you take this whole program to Africa and try and sell them blackness? Because this whole system that you've developed, it's fundamentally on the idea of accepting blackness as a value.
You remember I told you about in Ethiopia, they have something that's called Coke. But when you look at it, it doesn't say Coke. It says some kind of Ethiopian word. And the shapes, it looks like a tangled bunch of shapes, but that's their variable of the Coca-Cola logo. It's the same here when we talk about the cinnamon star, you see. In Africa, you can say black Betterment, just like in Africa, in Ethiopia, some of them say Coke, but some of them use a traditional word. Just like you can either say black Betterment or you can sell them African Advancement. You can spell it with a K or a C, it doesn't really matter. And
okay. So let's go. Let me play.
Here we go. Look,
devil's advocate here.
You see this star here? Just so you know, this star that I've highlighted. This is the key. We're teaching the world that this means that black people can have multiple names but be the same. It's that star there, and that's why you will never see a document that's black Betterment written that doesn't have that star there. Now you know. If you don't know the secret, that's a secret, and that star represents all these names.
Oh, so the star represents blackness.
The star, when you see the star next to a word, next to the word black or the other words, this says that all these names are branded the same thing. And I'm giving the example of Coca-Cola and the Ethiopian version of Coca-Cola or any other version. You can't read it as Coke because it ain't written in English and it isn't pronounced Coke. But we know that Coca-Cola own the copyright, right? And when you buy Coke, they're getting paid, regardless if it's in Ethiopia or in Japan. Right? So this is the same thing we have here. We're branding that black Betterment also means African advancement. It also means Aboriginal advancement. It also means Moorish management. Because all these, remember, what happens is because we're collectively inadequate as a people, and we're not as collectively we're not collectively as with our strategizing techniques are not as good as non-black people. What happens is naming it becomes like the first problem. While the Asian man is owning banks, owning stores, owning this kind of stuff in the mass, we're arguing over black and African. This is inadequate behavior, brother. So we need a quick fix. The quick fix is the synonymous star. So if I personally take this serious, then when a guy goes, I'm not black, I'm African, we go, yeah, of course you're African Advancement. Same thing, just different name. And then it's done. Just like if you don't believe it, there's a religion known as Islam and a religion known as Christianity, right? Or even Judaism, right? And what I've discovered that's amazing is in Islam, they worship a God that they describe as Allah, right? But in Christianity, right, or say Judaism, they worship a God that they call Jehovah or a God. It depends, right? But because they have their own cinnamon star above that, so the Arab and the Jew are talking about the same person, but they use different words, and they know that. That's why they will never make the Jew will never make fun of the Arab God or the Arab word for God, and the Arab will never make fun of the Jewish word for God because they see them as the same thing.
They're Abrahamic. Yeah, they're all along in the Abrahamic faith.
Have you noticed that it's different words and even different kind of stories that get them to worship? So this is because they understand how to be adequate. You see,
right. Okay, so watch this. So what is the unifying? What are you calling the unifying entity then when addressing the Africans?
So
I'm not
if
quite understanding this the star thing.
I'll start by going, hi everyone. I practice black betterment, and this recognizes that because of the treatment of people defined as African or black historically, we're inadequate, and we tend to argue over simple stuff. So we have a solution that we're promoting a lifestyle called black betterment. However, in Africa, we can also call it African advancement, meaning the black people in the diaspora and the black people in Africa can work in unison for collective betterment. And that's how we do it.
No. It still comes across that you're trying to sell blackness to Africans, and they're not going to take it because they see blackness
right
as a construct of the West.
No, I hate
so
it.
So they just don't want it whatsoever.
No, I hate it. But remember this word I said. Remember this word, brother. We talk about open door elitism. You see, and what open door elitism, how it works is. The most successful people who practice utility and unity will always come forward. And as you know, the world is actually run by a smaller number. So they say that 1 to 5% of people run the world, or less than 1% to be true, right?
Okay.
So we understand that you can get an elite group of black people, whether they're in the diaspora here, to run black people, right? So they establish this.
I run the Africans as well.
Of course. Once that's why synchronization is key.
This is a bit serious, man. Watch this.
Let me explain. Let me explain.
Go on.
Let's demonstrate. We know that there are certain religions that were not actually from Africa, but when you go to Africa, they dominate. That means someone from outside Africa may actually come in and feed an idea. That person who came, they had gold robes, nice food, and a big smile on their face. This was this has a perception of some kind of importance that someone began and they took and they pushed on. If you're a black person from say UK, Canada, and you generally love the diasporans, you can go there with a big smile on your face and be genuine and go, brothers and sisters, this is going to be very alien to you, but here's an idea called black betterment that you can call African advancement if you like. And here's what we do. And what will happen is you're going to get 100 people go, no, but you're going to get 100 people say yes. And they will be completely synchronized with what you're doing because they see success. People follow success.
Okay, good angle. Okay, let me see if I understand what you're saying.
There you go.
Right, so that's a good angle, because if they march into Africa and sell Christianity or sell Islam or sell all these different Abrahamic
whatever you're selling, anything that didn't originate in Africa that has been adopted by mass is because they perceive it as successful. They perceive it as better than what they're doing, so they jump on it. So if we're saying that your very being, there are people in the world who's going to work with you because of your very being and your very experience, and then we show them examples across the diaspora, it'll be very alluring. Very alluring.
Can I just ask a question here? Are we saying that Africans weren't capable of practicing black betterment before now?
Yeah, I was going to say that as well. That's a good question as well.
I don't agree at all. Like a lot of that.
Yeah. Of course not. Black, if you Pan-Africanism and all forms of B1ism goes through Africa.
What I was trying to say, to me, the way that I perceived it was it's the equivalent, and I think that's what I think.
What's the equivalent?
Pardon?
What is the equivalent?
Yeah,
it's the equivalent.
Yeah. So if you let me finish the sentence, you might be able to get a better understanding. So when you was answering that kind of question, why I understood God of Jacob's questioning behind it is because, and again, what IC3 came on saying, it's like this concept of black betterment is something new, and Raven is coming to now bring it to the people. And what is the new name of blacks, and what the name it's not like that's a walk way of thinking. If you hear Kale come on, he's constantly talking about Marcus Garvey and the blueprint. There's so like what I see I don't think it's me, but I'm definitely getting feedback.
I'm just gonna mute people to see who's doing it. Okay, I'm just gonna mute everyone apart from Sister. There, go ahead, sis.
Yeah, so to me, what it was basically, if you go to someone in Africa, when they understand what black betterment is, they have the equivalent there. If you go to, for example, America, like what God God of Jacob was saying, there is different pockets there, and people who relate will understand or have the equivalent there. It's not to have a Western mentality to go up to them and say, now this is my idea, and now we must change what you're doing, rebrand your whole name. You're not black anymore, you're this. You're not this group anymore, you're now Black Betterment. That's ridiculous. Like, we have to respect each people and each tradition, let them grow in their culture, respect it, and respectively have trade with them, respectively have businesses with them, interact, mingle, build families with them, grow respectively, like their individual places. I don't see Black Betterment coming in and now this is the new name of Black, or that, like, to think that this ideology has come from nowhere. Like, to me, Black Betterment has always been like having to be perhaps like a dummy guide for people who does not understand the concept of a code. This is the beginning. Like, Raven has something for every single question against being what I see as being on code, right? So this is what Black Betterment is. This is a dummy guide. He's got from the literally just to the A to Z. Any questions you've got, he's come up against. He's got like a whole workbook, be able to refer you to things. This is what I'm saying. The things that perhaps have not been, because before we didn't have to do this. It was understood amongst each other. There was more of us that got things, but as we grow, we realize the consciousness is lost. So now we have to label everything. And once we just label it, it can't just be labeled. Some will come and dig into something else. So now what Brother Raven does, he has structured it. He's given a name for it. So we don't have to go through this rabbit hole kind of thing. But that's my equivalent or my version of Black Betterment, not coming in and now labeling what is Black or coming to be the new savior or coming to, like, no, that's not it for me.
Well done there, sister. Very good speech there. Very good. Well done. There's that brother, you might be muted, brother. So just so I had to mute you because there was feedback. So IC3, you've been muted. I don't know if you can hear me, brother IC3.
All right, I still haven't quite got it yet. So watch this. Because it's the way I'm thinking. So I'm thinking myself, right, I'm a salesman for Black Betterment. So I arrive in Africa and I say, right, let's say I'm going to the African Union. Yeah, I go to the African Union. I'm invited to give a speech, and let's put it on you. You're invited to the African Union, and you are asked to give a speech on whatever it is that you're doing. So they might say, well, what would be your presentation to all those people at the conference? How would you sell Black Betterment to those people at the conference?
Well, to be honest, I probably wouldn't, in the sense of, for example, how I operate now is I have a project that I'm doing and I need to hire people, and I'll go, okay, well, let me hire people in the continent. And then I find people in the continent who can do a particular skill. I let them know I'm Brother Raven, I'm based in the UK, and I make it my priority to work with people in the diaspora of the African Black diaspora to work together to do constructive things. So if there's other companies they have, let me know. But I'm looking specifically for African companies, and that's how I can operate. I let people know what I'm doing, and I do it. Very tangible, and it's never been not understood. As in,
okay, watch this.
Never.
Okay, very good. Okay, watch this now. So I've had this out. I've been going on to the African panels and discussing with them, and this issue, and even some people that come to my think tanks at the West Green Road, and this Somali guy came down and joined the think tank, and he was saying, "Look, well," I was saying to him, "What's your solution? What's your solution?" And he says, everybody, all the people in the West, right? What they must do, they need to bring the money back to Africa. Yeah, organize, do business, do whatever, and bring the wealth to Africa, and return to Africa, but don't get involved in the politics. Bring the money. We want your money in Africa, but we don't want your politics. We don't want your ideology. We don't want your values. Just bring the money. So I say to the Africans, but wait, well, come on. You want the diaspora to come back to Africa with all their money and not have a say in the politics. Well, what are you talking about? Think about what you're saying there.
Okay.
And
yeah, but
it's
I mean, does that brother identify as pro-black, pan-African, or black better in any kind of that brother?
He identifies as pan-African, but not pro-black, pro-Africa. For the good of Africa, all you sick diasporans need to throw away your values that you've received in the West, take the money and come back to Africa and be quiet with your political views, because we don't want you to contaminate Africa with your values, your Western values, because it's your Western values that is keeping Africa behind. So bring the money, but leave the Western values.
That is, I don't know, maybe the brother has a point, maybe he doesn't, but I say this. Usually it's I don't take everyone serious, and I mean that in the most kindest way, as in like every black person has an opinion, and I love that opinion, but I value action. Action. And in order for that for me to have a conversation about that brother will have to have a movement or an idea that he pushes forward day to day, and it actually makes some kind of ground, and black people can either choose to join it or go against it. You see? But because as soon as we try to answer whatever he's saying, there'll be some other person who's sitting on the armchair who has a very different idea about something, right? But I'm saying the person who actually gets up and does something, for example, Brother Umar in America, he's trying to fund the school, right? And that's like some people are against it, some people are for it. But he's gone and done it, so you can either support or ignore. And he's documented on his Twitter and so forth. You can either send your kid there, you don't. But right now, there's something that's actually happening that people can jump on board or have an opinion about. If you're a person who's got an idea, then and you're not really actioning, it's hard for us to talk. But maybe there's some cool philosophers in that. Like maybe there is some corruptive ideas in the West that should go back home, and maybe there's stuff that needs to go that needs reforming. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, as a conquering black person, a conquering African, we never focus on like untangible kind of arguments. It's like that's why I keep saying like when you
conquering black person,
right,
conquering African, is it the same?
So now maybe to someone like yourself, it's very important that these two words are not don't combine. But when I speak, I do combine them because I'm aware that words can be synonymous. I'm aware.
Can I push back? I mean, I always play this little thing. My whole thing is your sign that you have up is well thought out, and I appreciate it. But like I said, I've been on that continent for 6 years, man, and they already practice black betterment. All the stuff that you're mentioning, they do.
Then why would we mention it here, then, brother?
They do this, and I'm just telling you, if you go over there, say again, brother.
Why did we? So what I'm saying is, if anyone, we're trying to wake up those who not wake up, and we're trying to work with those who want to work with, right? So it wouldn't be in our best interest to always mention people who do it, who do. So it would be more constructive is we're looking for people who are doing what you've just described, and if we can network with them, then it's done. So right now,
but okay. I understand you, but then just get to the mission. But all this black stuff, because what's going to happen? I was spec ops for 6 years on that continent, and if you take that picture over there, my unit is going to get a picture of you because some African and scooped you up and put you on a stroll, and I'm gonna have to come hump and look for you, right? If you come around some Africans, some real ones, talking about let me teach you how to be better black. My unit is going to have to come look for you.
Brother what's happening? It happens a lot on the show. Is people have like they have like a direct.
People have experience on the continent. That's what people have.
Let me explain. people have like a director mindset, and when they hear people trying to sort out certain scenarios, they create like films in their head, and that's good. It's entertaining, but realistically, the idea is we're selling lifestyles and ideas. So the idea is someone on the continent is seeing something like this, and if they are unsynchronized or not bothered, they'll be motivated to do something in their own environment. But there will be already people there who are motivated anyway. They just won't be aware of it. They haven't come across it. But their way through Pan-Africanism or Black Betterment or B1 is through maybe this platform or another platform. But yes, we are going to go on the continent and do stuff. But
can I ask you before you get going? How many times have you been on the continent, and how many countries have you been in?
So I've been to 2 countries in Africa.
Which ones?
Gambia and Egypt.
Oh, Egypt. Okay.
Yeah. So, but to be honest with you, I'm from the Caribbean. I've been to all the Caribbean countries, right? And whether I have or haven't, it comes down to philosophies, right? I'm in
lifestyle.
the UK. Lifestyle, yeah. So I'm in the UK practicing Black Betterment. When I'm doing certain things require me to go to the diaspora, i.e., America, the Caribbean, or Africa, and I do that. And in the economic tools I'm doing and things I'm doing, I hire people from the continent, get them paid, network, and form ideas, ideologies, institutions, blah blah blah. So I don't have to do the directive thing. Like if I go there, I get kidnapped, and I need to get special ops. It doesn't really matter.
Brother, you don't. You know why you can say that so easily? Because you have never put yourself in that situation. And I'm not trying to come at you on no disrespectful shit, but it's easy for you to sit there, no spec ops. You do, brother. Stop.
Brother GOJ. First of all, very important that what we try to do is, you probably missed the beginning. When we talk, we try to use colorless language if possible, just because we want people from a young age to old age to be able to listen.
What is colorless language? I didn't get
colorless. We use the term colorless as in like geography terms, name calling, this kind of stuff, right?
Brother, I know this is your platform, but you can't dictate my talk now. Goddamn, that's color. That you try to colonize me.
Yeah, brother. Yeah. So the thing is, brother, because this is the rule set, and obviously you're new to it, we try to create a way of speaking that minimizes anxiety, and this is the strategy we go for. Some people find it hard not to communicate without using certain terms, and we understand that because of the history. But we say it might not be the best platform for them because they will struggle to communicate because they find it very difficult to not communicate with using certain terms. I understand that, but on this platform, for studied reasons, we try to minimize it. Right now, to your question, very few things you can say can really insult us because we talk from a collective standpoint. But I'm saying whatever experience you have, this is good. But from what I'm seeing, it seems to be more of a directional kind of thing where it's like these are hypothetical things that could happen. And if they do happen, that's wrong. But once again, in my experience of being here and doing things from here and then hiring there, none of these things are even remote close. Also, the drive to want to go to another country and completely convert people like I'm some kind of I don't know, evangelical. This isn't really there. It's really simple, really. It's what can Black people do to improve their current standing, in the most tangible way. And you tend to find that, it isn't that deep.
You sure?
Yeah.
Brother, what?
Okay, let's explore this.
I don't know the dictionary. I don't know which words I use.
Well, let's break.
Can I ask the Jacob question after, please?
You most certainly can. I'll just say this. Here's what I find. I could be wrong. The more you actually do Black orientated stuff, meaning I'm actually doing this activity for Black people to progress here, the more you do that, from my experience, you can ask other actors as well, the less you start, you're less aware of the hypotheticals and stuff because you're actually in the field doing stuff for, not just living, but you're doing stuff specifically for Black people, not for everyone and Black people benefit, specifically. When you do that, your mind doesn't generate these kind of scenarios of what if I get this happen, what happens, because you're so in it, you see the reality of what you're doing. And I invite anyone out there who has these kind of fear structures to do that. I think the brother might have been disconnected, sister. Did you have a question for him?
Yeah, he's dropped off. He might come back though.
It might be internet where he's based. Maybe he's based in some kind of base where there's no internet. I don't know.
I was just gonna say because this is why I'm sorry.
There we go, brother. The sister want to ask you a question. Can you just hear it for a bit? Go ahead, sis.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wanted to say, it was interesting when you said to Raven that, like, like you said something along the lines that if he thinks that he's gonna go to Africa and convince them how to be black, and this is kind of why I kind of interjected earlier. Sorry if it did come across like a speech; it wasn't meant to. It was just me trying to curve the narrative of um, um, Raven or Black Betterment coming to overtake or create something new, and more. I think what it is combining with the equivalent mindset, and I think that's where you're missing because you're interchanging blackness into this, and it's about engaging with like-minded. So it's going to the African continent, and once you speak that kind of language, it's like a whistle call to like-minded people, and it's about engaging with them. And I think the narrative of saying that, Black Betterment is already practicing in Africa is probably a great endorsement because it shows that there is pockets of us across the world who are doing this. And we understand the kind of society we're in at the moment where that voice is really, it's non-existent. So to have a space in something like YouTube and talk this, it's like a whistle call to like-mindedness to me. But on top of that, like what Raven said, it's also, it opens up for people who might not necessarily be of like mind and to educate them into this kind of mindset as well.
My whole thing was, man, like I said, I've been on the continent. If I never go back, that'll be too soon. My whole thing is I've seen black people on that continent doing their thing, getting down, living good. You get what I'm saying? So and they do it as a collective. Some people be in different tribes. So I'm just saying, you coming over there and promoting what they already do is crazy to me. Now I know I get on Africans' ass every now and then when it's a diaspora shit talking fest. I'm in it. But at the end of the day, ground truth, they already are capable of or are doing what you're trying to throw at them. That's all I'm saying.
How about this angle?
But remember, it wasn't like Raven was saying he's going to go to Africa. IC3 bring up the whole equation of going to Africa. That's why it got stuck on Africa. Like more times we're talking about stuff within the West. And we welcome African voices, of course, but more times it's saying about there's nothing. He never does a show about us booking a trip and going.
No, we don't do that. And to be honest, and sister, let me just jump in. The thing is, this is the kind of mind we have. This kind of mindset where we create scenarios and we really attack that scenario, and it really isn't that deep. Like I said,
brother, I ain't saying nothing deep. I'm just responding, brother. Nothing deep over here. I'm just having a conversation with you.
No,
I'm saying it's deep.
Yeah, I'm referring to Rabbi.
It's well deep.
But before we come in, we've got a guest melanated goddess. Welcome, sister. Black Betterment.
Welcome.
Good evening to my brothers and my sisters. You know I love these diasporan conversations. I kind of, I kind of jumped in real late in the conversation. Y'all already 2 hours in, so I ain't gonna ask nobody to restate nothing. But I did want to understand when brother GOJ was saying that, pretty much like asking people to do what they pretty much are already doing because they have these black nations. I guess I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. And there are those middle class and upper class black people. So you would feel that they are, I don't know, like doing like shopping black and doing business with black because they're a black nation. I was gonna say my question to the whole panel, not just GOJ, what is the harm in stating the obvious for what you believe to be the obvious? And the reason why, let me give you some background, is being a Black American, even though I'm a diasporan American, meaning my parents weren't born here, I was born in this country. And some people who were born in this country view me as their peer, right? They don't see me as outside of their group. So for those people, when we have conversations and I say things like, oh, do you have the name of a black dentist? Oh, do you know we're going to go away? My job is going to go somewhere for happy hour. Hey, do you have a recommendation of a black owned business that we can go for happy hour. Oh, I would like to go to a winery. Do you have the name of a black-owned winery, right? When we step outside and we make those specifications to kind of be intentional about the things that we do, even within our group, I personally experienced some kickback. Black American people want to know, why do I need to go to a black winery? Why do I need a black dentist? Right? They like actual black people, right? Not only black Americans, diasporans, continentals, Caribbeans, what black people who are here in America, because that's not their paradigm that they operate from. It's it's foreign to them. So when they hear this coming from a black person, hey, do you have the name of a black therapist? They're looking at me like, what gives a who do you care about? Like, if you got issues, don't you need a therapist? You just need a good therapist. You don't need a black therapist. You just need a good dentist. You don't need a black dentist. Like this, I think even though it feels like we're stating the obvious, there is a good proportion of the quote unquote black community that is not on page with at least being more intentional. Obviously, if I ask somebody to do my floors and I get a black person and they fuck up my floors, I'm not going to just give them my money because they black, right? So I'm by no means saying we should just do business with black people regardless of the quality of work that they do. But there's some black people that don't put any thought in general about the group that they are, what they're going to do with their dollar bills. So to me, the conversation around that doesn't seem futile. The conversation around having a black tutor versus a non-black tutor, having a black summer camp versus a non-black summer camp, all of those things, when you're talking about our children and who's involved and who's around our children, some of our people need help actually seeing the value in that. That's just my point, is that some people don't even see the value in it. And I think even though the conversations seem redundant, I think they're very well needed.
Thank you, sis. I second that. I think Brother IC3 wanted to say something. He seems to be very. Would you want to say something, Brother IC3? You might be muted. If you're muted, you might have to press that.
Yeah. Okay. So the concept, the statement you have: black people are collectively inadequate. Right. And to the Africans who don't like to use the word black, you would say, right, African people are collectively inadequate. And I'm sure they're not going to want to argue with you when you say that, because it's blatant to the IMF and what's going on in Africa. They're not going to argue with that. So collectively inadequate. And the solution to that is the promotion of a lifestyle that would make black African people collectively adequate.
That's right. You see what Caesar just said? You see what Caesar just said? But she goes, it might seem all Mac to us the way of thinking, but actually people don't practice this, as in like working for your group particularly to improve it. Some of the people don't naturally feel that way, not as a high ratio in comparison to non-black people in different scenarios. That's why when I talk to brothers and sisters, I ask them, in your country, give me the ratio of the black versus the Asian versus the Arab versus the Jew, and let me know which one is more dedicated in ownership and economics and this kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
I get the same result all the time, but I also get like a feel-good scenario. And something I have to say is very important. Whenever you're talking to black people, really get down to the nitty-gritty of what they're saying, and when you actually decode it, it comes down to do nothing. And when it comes down to do nothing, we can then say, this is the inadequacy that we're talking about. It's just
right.
And also, whenever you have a person who's saying, I want to work with this person, I want to try to find thing, and they keep othering, going, it ain't gonna work, or people are fine, whatever. That is also part of the inadequacy. And what's happening is I'm using this conversation to demonstrate the quote we just mentioned, that black people are collectively inadequate. And once we know it, we can change it. But if we don't know it, it then becomes a feel-good conversation about, directing and this kind of thing.
Yes. So
That's funny,
This
bro, Raven. You should call it the do nothing philosophy. It's the way you said
so lifestyle. So okay, lifestyle. So you may get a certain tribe or clan, and they're working together, like God of Jacob saying, and they're working together and they're doing things positive for their particular community.
Yes.
And you may get other groups of Black African people around the world doing things collectively in their own groups.
Yes.
Okay. So there's small groups who, if you say to them, why don't you do something collectively? They say, we are doing things collectively. We're doing business together and so on. But when you say collectively, you're talking umbrella on a global level. Correct?
Yes. So just so you know, there's two ways of viewing things when it comes to Black people operating. I've mentioned this in the past. One is in a land or area where you can see Black people as a minority, and then one where you can see Black people as a majority or the complete. Right. So that example would be Black countries. So you would have to judge Black countries very different from how you judge Black communities of a minority nature. So if a Black country as a whole, you would have to compare how it's operating to its Asian or European equivalent, and that you give them a benchmark to reach. And you say we do all these things to try to compete at this level, right? On the actual community level, you will go, okay, look at the people groups in your same community, i.e. the Asians, the Jews, the Indians. Are you competing at the same level of them? If not, then we have to work together to compete. That's how you do it, brother. It's two ways you have to process it.
Okay. So how then, the question is, how then to effectively work together? How can a Black American effectively work together with an African Somali?
You talking about in the same land or in different lands?
Well, because the Somali will say they're doing their thing, and the Black Americans are saying they're doing their things. But in order to counter the power of white supremacy, you're going to have to set up some international format.
Right.
And what will be the nature of that international format? What will that international lifestyle look like in order to produce an adequate counter culture or counter lifestyle to counter the power of white supremacy?
Well, like I said, if they are operating in their own area and they're building up, at a certain point they're going to be trading with each other, right? And that is what it is.
What?
They're going to be trading. They'll be trading with each other, right? So, for example, you're a country or a collective, or whatever, and you can get your particular thing from all these other countries, but you recognize that in this country there's a Black factory, and in this there's a Black factory. So rather than going all around the world, we're going to go there because we practice Black Burma.
Practice locally.
Yeah, well, so what happens is, for example, we have a factory in London controlled by Black people, and then we're trading with Nigeria. And so we're getting resources from Nigeria, and then Nigeria's getting resources back, and we're giving Nigeria the first dibs, and they're giving us the first dibs because we're networking on that level. We're looking out for each other's best interests.
Yeah. So that's a very popular view, what you're saying there.
Yeah.
Most people are doing that, but they can't counter the power of the dollar. That kind of looking out for each, it's not good enough. It's not strong enough.
That's a deep conversation. Remember, because we're inadequate, we can't go from 0 to 100. So we have to go through the steps. So when you say they are doing that, I'm not seeing that at a high ratio. I'm not seeing Black nations collaborating at a high level. I'm not seeing people in the diaspora send up shop in certain other Black countries and back and forth like I'm seeing in Chinatown, Jerusalem, India, this kind of thing, right? I'm not seeing Black people go into other community groups and control the economic resource in those other community groups. So before we talk about destroying the dollar and introducing the Afro and this kind of stuff, which is a very important conversation, because we're inadequate, we have to go through the stages. So it's almost like there's a fight and we're actually asleep. And it's
okay.
So
so what's the first stage then?
Well, the first stage is awareness. So the way we're talking now, when we're talking to people, and there's a lack of awareness of a need to actually look for Black, to do for Black. That's starting that educating why that's important is important. And I think the sister did a beautiful analogy when she came in and gave her experience of actually saying, let's actually support black people. And you're like, what are you talking about? That's alien science. That's madman's philosophy, whatever, right? Because in the back of our minds, we think we're doing something automatically. And that's why I say, if you ask a black person, what do you do for black people? And they can't tell you, then they're doing nothing. You see?
Okay.
And that's how it works. That's the philosophy. If you go, so what do you do? And if they can't say, well, I only shop at this bank, or I've set up this group where only black people, or they haven't got any of these things, then technically they're doing nothing. And that's the philosophy that always works for me. Because usually, and this is the truth, what I'm saying is really the truth here, right? When you're actively working and looking and doing things for black people, all right, you don't think about these scenarios that other people come up with because you're too busy doing the work. So I already know who is doing the work, and the work is for black, not universal, building a bridge and everyone can cross it. This is for black people specifically only. This is what I'm doing. When you're doing that, everything else, all these scenarios that people make don't come up. I can promise you. And if you don't believe me, try it yourself and you'll see.
Okay.
Yeah. Remember, I'll be honest with you, we're going to end the show soon, but the real issue with the black community, for my obviously, is this like we make directing movies in our head, and the outcome of the direction movie is do nothing, right? But before we get to the do nothing philosophy that most people spit without them knowing they're spitting it really is miscegenation. Black men longing to be with non-black women is the start from my research of most of the problems. And I know it sounds very controversial, or not controversial enough, but
it's an aspect, yeah.
If you were black led, yeah, you would be trying to promote your own woman as the standard of beauty in the world. You see, right? Just like the white man does, they do it very effectively. Hence why the black man follow for the marketing. So with me, I have to go one step at a time, and the one step at a time is how do you make black men love black women optically mass, and then how do we create black economics optically the mass? Go ahead, bro.
Okay, so I think this is a parallel. Let me know what you think of this. So I asked some Africans on their forum. I said, look, you're going to do a presentation to a group of students who are about African students who are about to go to the West to study and to get good jobs. So their intent is to leave. So you got a chance to speak to them before they go. Their intent is to leave here, Africa, go to America, study, get a good job, make some good money, live in America, enjoy the American lifestyle, and with the big money that they're making in America, they're going to send it home to Africa. Yes, and help with projects in Africa whilst living in America, and then traveling back to Africa every now and then to visit the family and bring some presents. But basically live in America and earn money in America. Okay. So I said to them, I want you to tell me what you're going to say to those students to encourage them to come back to Africa. Why would they want to come back to Africa if they're making good money in America and they're sending good amount of money to Africa? Why would they want to come back to Africa?
What was their response?
They said to me, "Oh, you're really clever. Oh, that's a hard question. That's a hard question." I said, "It's not me being clever. I'm saying we're having this discussion here. Why are you saying that I'm clever? Is it your way out?" I said, "Let's deal with the question."
Right.
I couldn't answer the question.
I think that question is so relevant because like you're of Caribbean descent, right? My family is of foreign descent. I think it's a very valid comment to the degree that even being in North America, how many Irish Americans have actually returned back to Ireland? How many Scandinavian descendants have returned back to their homeland? How many German or British? Like they're not returning back; they're just staying in America And it goes the same way for a Trinidadian, a Guyanese, a Bayesian, or a friggin' Brazilian. If they make it to America, like one or two, even three generations, you can't expect for them to just turn around and just return back, because they're kind of in this building up perspective, right? The first generation probably did lots of work, menial jobs, X, Y, and Z. The first generation probably were the first of everything, the first term owners, the first to graduate college, X, Y, and Z. And they are providing maybe a college education for their generation. Now you're three generations in being here within this in the West, right? And they're just in the to the point where people who have been here for many generations are just at their first, like, okay, you went to school here and we expect you to go to college and we expect you to produce. That's at least three generations. So when you put these expectations of these people who are quote unquote foreigners, right? How much are you really expecting in 3 and 4 generations? Like,
well, hold on, family. Before anyone jumps in, because we're gonna have to continue this next week. But before we do go, there is because remember, one of my goals is to identify collective inadequacies amongst our people, just so we can try to rectify it. And we put up a question about language this week, which is a very important one. We're going to carry, and that is where's that? I'm looking at that slide. I think I've got a slide. Is it this? I think it's this one. There we go. Right. So yeah. So what I'm saying is this, family. I think the brother had a question for is gone. It's a shame. Maybe his internet is gone. And the question, and this is now more so to the people out there, is if when on the show we say, can you please not use colorless language, derogatory language, and some of the words are there on the actual screen at the moment, and there's some others, a bit more colorless. And I asked the black people, who do use this, because it's fine to use this, music and talking amongst friends and groups. But this platform, we try to not have that at all unless we're studying a case study that has it in there. In your life, is there any scenarios where you don't use these kind of languages, kind of like, the F-bomb, the S-bomb, the B-bomb, all this kind of stuff, the N-bomb, all this kind of stuff? Let me know if there's any scenarios in your life, right? It'll be interesting to know that. And it's a shame the gentleman's gone because he wanted to
only
speak.
one where there's an actual consequence, whether the consequence is social or professional,
let me ask you this.
financial.
Let me ask you this. So
I'm just speaking as a Black American,
generally, yeah.
right? Or as an American, right?
Yes.
Maybe not FBA or ADOS, right? But as an American who I would say profanity is part of my culture.
No,
right?
I agree with that.
When I use profanity, I'm not looked upon as I'm operating outside of the culture. And the only environments where the F bomb, the B bomb, any of those bombs are withheld, or I utilize some level of restraint, because I happen to think that profanity is linked with intelligence, right? But that's my own thing. So I don't necessarily view them as bad, quote unquote, or taboo, but I just view it as other people think it's taboo, and I want to be respectful of other people, just like I'm respectful in other areas.
So to Sister Melanie Goes and Brother GOJ, would you use those kind of language in front of children and in front of ministers, children, or your workplace?
Well, I don't speak about vaginas or penis, right? He's saying absolutely. I don't speak about vagina or penis, right? Or I don't speak about abortion. I don't speak about certain things depending on if it's age appropriate or content specific appropriate. If I'm speaking to my little cousin about some boy said, I want to pop your cherry, and I need to explain to her what that actually meant and about the birds and the bees, and we're going to get down and dirty, I'm not going to use certain language, right? So I use
let me add to what you're saying. So let me just the question, because I'm going somewhere. It might be surprising. So would you, when you're talking to those kids of a certain age, would you also use F bombs and B bombs and these kinds of things to them?
I might say, listen, because of when I was in the 4th grade, which is what y'all call year 4, Right. I had just returned back from living in Miami, Florida. I had moved back to living in Brooklyn, New York, and some boy told me he wanted to pop my cherry. I had no idea what the fuck that meant. You understand? What does pop your cherry meant?
Sister.
I'm sorry.
Swearing.
Hold on. You know,
Yeah, right. What the hell? Or what the heck? Like, what the, to me, okay, listen, you don't want me to use fuck. Okay, I won't use it.
We're using this as a case study. Hold on. And this gonna be, it's a very hard strategy to do, trust me, but we're gonna try to do it. So the question I'm asking is see the F word you just used there.
Right. So fuck is what he wanted to fuck me. He wanted to fuck me.
No, hold on. When you're talking to children, as in your children, do you use that word to them, like younger children?
Depending on what I'm saying, I will tell my son, you don't tell no girl you want to fuck her. What the fuck is what is fuck? When you fuck a girl, what is fuck? We will have the conversation. No, I'm explaining, brother. I'm explaining to you. You asked me a question, right? Allow me to answer the question. What I'm saying to you is I'm speaking to a young man, right? I will ask him, when you tell a girl, I want to fuck you, what is the difference between fucking her, making love to her, or having sex with her? What do you mean when you say you want to fuck her? Because that may be that's a different language that they use in my generation. And all I do is tell them that it's offensive.
Sis, it's not really about you, it's about an idea.
Right. You just asked, but your question was, if you were speaking to someone,
because you've done it adequately. You've done it very adequately. So now I need to move
but
on.
I didn't even. But how would I do it adequately? And you're as soon as I start speaking, you say sis. You start speaking while I'm answering. I don't even know if I'm answering you because you're just hearing part of my answer. Brother, you're hearing. Brother, listen, you're hearing part of my answer, and you're saying that's sufficient. Let me keep going, right? And what I'm trying to tell you is how that. Listen, but hear me, brother. While a person is speaking, you have to understand how that comes across. I don't know what part of what I said was sufficient, right? It's just like, I've heard enough. Be quiet. Let me continue on my question. And I'm just telling you that doesn't really come across as an open line of communication either. That's all I'm trying to say. But go ahead. It's your channel.
Hold on. You're right. It is a channel. And I might enjoy the way you speak and find this beautiful and poetical, right? As I do. However, because we have rules and we have to value the rules, we try to have some kind of decorum and monitor of those rules. Now, you've given a great context, right? But in order to further the conversation, I need to add to it. And if you keep repeating yourself, you're kind of...
But no, because you never said I couldn't say it. If you would have told me, listen, we're talking about the F-bomb, but please don't say it, then I wouldn't have said it. But you never did say that. But what you did was you demonstrated you were upset about me actually saying it, even though you hinted at the word. So I wouldn't know that the word itself is off limit, right? But
so
when I say it, but then while I'm saying it and I'm elaborating, now I'm being cut off. And what I'm saying is that part is confusing because if part of what I'm saying is being heard, then of course you can understand why I would be like, I don't only want part of what I'm saying to be unheard. I don't only want the F-bomb to be heard. I want everything else after that to be heard. So this is why I'm continuing to speak. But if you were to tell me, hey, sis, we're going to have a conversation about the freedom or the lack that you observe in the U.S. around profanity and how that's handled around the youth, then, and you say, but we don't want to actually use profanity during this conversation, right? Then you have set the parameters around the conversation. Okay, but if you don't do that, then you can't, while a person is speaking, try to enforce parameters because then that comes across a little bit difficult. You see what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to say.
I hear you, and I'll give you 10 points for what you said. Now, I say this. I suspect, like many people, the first is two different cultural understandings, and many people do not catch the beginning of the show. It's probably the most, boring element of the show we ever do. But in the show, we say we don't use derogatory language for multiple reasons. The reasons there's so many, and one day maybe we should do a list of why we don't. It's very important, but we won't get it now. But we do start the show saying that, and we do try to control it. Now, the reason the way I was trying to go with the conversation is with the black people in the entire world, UK, Canada, Africa. I'm asking the question that is there any environment where you do not use these terms? And some people say maybe at work, some people say maybe to my kids. Some say, you know what? Derogatory terms ain't derogatory. They're a sign of intelligence and calmness and love. So I call my son Biafran all the time. I call my daughter, the context is fine. I say these things in my workplace, they love it for me. And I go, okay. And we can study it and see maybe that's something we should adopt for Black people to all be used as terms. Or if we're saying there are particular scenarios where a Black person is going into an establishment to do particular work and they do not use these terms, then the question is, what power does that establishment have to enforce that? And does that Black person have higher respect by being on code and discipline in that environment versus when they're trying to come with different types of Black people to find solutions? Because the way I see it,
no. I don't mean to like cut you while you're speaking, brother, but I think that when you say like on code and discipline and X, Y, and Z, I think that like when I'm at work and I don't use profanity, I'm looked at upon as being on code and discipline. I looked at as I'm adhering to the rules within that particular setting. But I think that for a person to assume that within the Black code of conduct that it already exists, that we don't use profanity.
No,
like,
not true, bro.
Hold on, I know you're not talking. I'm saying my position. I think that is a gross misassumption because whoever that would be, I would tell them that they're wrong for interpreting that profane language is outside of Blackness, because that person defined Blackness under their narrow scope, right? But you know, there's Blackness in Honduras. If I was in Honduras and I was a fully 100% like Black person of African origin, being born in a Spanish-speaking country, my experience would be one thing. And maybe the way that I speak would be chucha tu madre and da, da, da. I would have my own way of my own way of expressing myself in that environment, right? So therefore, Blackness and being a person of African descent will be defined under those contexts. But what we can't do is globally span what the Black experience. And when I say Black, I mean a person who acknowledges and accepts and embraces their African ancestry and the complexities of that identity wherever they are in the globe, right? So that looks different. So whereas if somebody else would say, you know, you're bullocks and you know, fire for docs, and they have their own things. In America, you're a bitch ass N-word, right? So all of those things, right? If you want to be a fossy or a bitch ass, right? All of that is considered part of Blackness, not just one, not just, oh, you're a fossy and I didn't say bitch, motherfucker, or pussy, so therefore I'm cool, right? But I called you a fossy and clearly we don't know what the hell a fossy is, so that's going to slide through the cracks. No, like all of it is the way in which Black people express themselves. In America, they call you a bitch, and in Jamaica, they're gonna call you a fossy. They mean the damn same thing, right? And you understand what I'm trying to say? So, like, if someone says,
I need to jump in because
so it's kind of like to me, sometimes I'm feeling some sort of double standard. I'm feeling a double standard.
Here's the idea. Whether you're American or Jamaican or UK, both words would not be appropriate for an institution trying to find solutions and working towards one goal within this particular institution. Now, I'm not saying that those words don't sound beautiful and make you think of the heavens and the sea rising and this kind of stuff. However, the most important thing is establishing that Black people are collectively inadequate and demonstrating that by not being able to follow rule sets, but also comparing that to when we're in different institutions, i.e. Jewish institutions, white institutions, this kind of stuff, right? To see, so when Black people go to this institution and they help him build up that institution, they understand the rule set and not behaving this kind of way for that. But when they come into their own institutions, they throw this to the wind. I'm saying there is a value in maintaining that. That doesn't mean that these words don't sound beautiful or you shouldn't do it at home But there is a
No,
rule
I
set.
was talking about beautiful
Hold on,
sounding, brother.
Let me explain.
Mel. Let me say something real quick because, brother, you kind of tried to jump on me for saying "cuz," right? Ain't that what you told me?
Say, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear what you said. Say, sorry.
I said "cuz," and you said that's inadequate or whatever the hell you
No, no,
said,
no,
right?
no. I never said.
What's wrong with cuz? What's wrong
No,
with
that's what he
cuz?
said. I said I asked him what did I say. He said you said "cuz."
No, no.
Well,
Now,
I'm gonna
It's
ask
basically,
Brother Raven because I wasn't present.
Wait.
Oh my God, y'all want to hold on?
Hold on. Let me as a director just whenever there is whenever there's a statement that's not correct, from moving now, we're gonna stop it there. So if someone is assumed something wrong, we can't allow a 5-minute speech about something that isn't correct.
No, it
There is
wasn't
nothing
about
wrong
his
with
speech. I was gonna ask what's the problem.
Sister, brother, hold on. Confusion. Listen, I'm saying that there is no offense with the word "cuz." All right. So if we're going to have a 5-minute speech about that, it won't be in our best interest.
we're not about to have a 5-minute speech about that.
Good, excellent. So we're okay with it then. So there must be some confusion. I'm saying we use words like F-bomb, S-bomb, this kind of stuff, right? I'm saying.
Hold on. Just let me finish. Let me finish one time. You stopped me earlier, and I specifically asked you, "What did I say?" And then you responded, "Didn't you say cuz?" And I said, "Yes." My whole thing is, I know you position yourself. This is your platform as some type of nigga-damus and the intellectual teacher in this room, but ain't no fuck nigga like you gonna regulate my talk. Have a nice day.
Are you gonna go now? Is that the strategy? So this is important, right? So what we've observed here is someone who was mistaken. He was mistaken, and then he is reacted to his mistake, right? Now, this is what we have to learn. Now, what's good about this is the reasons why we try to minimize F-bombs, this kind of stuff, is because it's hard to it's hard to actually separate when someone's very happy or sad and they're using it. So we have a code to say, let's minimize that. Now, regardless of what country you're from, whether it's Canada, America, the Africa, we understand what derogatory terms is. And sometimes we have to use non-Black communities as that kind of benchmark. So we go, okay, when you go on the TV owned by the European media, the Jewish media, is there a rule set you follow? And you go, yes, we don't use these kind of words. Okay, so because we're trying to do serious work here, can we not do that? Now, one thing we're going to have to introduce, and it is this kind of like, I'm going to have that referee kind of input. But when I say stop, we stop. We never had to do it before, but the more popular we get, it's going to have to happen. If someone is incorrect in their analysis and they're going to try to have a monologue about that analysis, we have to stop them because it will only add to anxiety and confusion if someone is incorrect. If someone wishes to come in and they have slang, cuz, friend, bro, this kind of stuff, speak how you wish. We're saying, is there any derogative terms we want to eliminate? And sometimes in some cultures, in some places, people do not use swear words in their culture towards children and the elderly. Obviously, Black people, I'm saying there's different people, but generally, this is the accepted norm. And sometimes because as Black people, we don't mind swearing, or so-called swearing our children and our mothers, that we have to then go to what might be a more high respected authority, i.e. non-Black people. So we then say, okay, well, you might swear at your children and your mother, but when you go on TV, work, do you swear at your boss and your colleagues? And they go, oh no, we could never do that because there's rules and regulations. So this is the kind of thing that I'm trying to paint a picture for.
So okay, so Brother Raven, I don't. What I'm trying to say is that like I was very very specific before I started saying the F word and X, Y, and Z. You would be dishonest by saying that I was very specific when I started speaking. I said I just joined the stream. So one, you already knew I didn't hear whatever disclaimer you made when you first started the stream. You already knew that, right? So that didn't need to be. So I'm not operating outside the code of conduct. I'm not. I'm not stepping out of because I wasn't aware of the parameters, right? And that's just an understanding that any particular person, right? If you ever watch Titans TV, with every person on his show, as soon as they join, he reminds them. He repeats the rules. Why? Because I have not been watching the stream from day one. Number two, whatever the code of conduct is in Barbados is going to be different than the code of conduct in the UK. It's going to be different than the code of conduct in Alabama, right? So where is it? I'm in the Northeast and but having a Caribbean background, we nigga like that, right? But if I'm living in New Jersey, everybody is nigga, right? I can't be telling people, oh brother, you're unsynchronized. Like, because if I'm not factoring in the culture there, and I'm not saying, hey, for the purposes of this conversation, this is how we're going to operate. I work out at my job. I work with the youth. I tell them, when you come into my office, the other girls are no longer bitches. When y'all leave my office, I understand the cultural context. Y'all be like, bitch, that dude tried to holler at me. Bitch, he thought he tried it. Or bitch, he think I'm the baddest bitch. That's what happens outside of my office. When you're in my office, she's your sis, she's queen, she's God, she's whatever you want to call her, but she's not a bitch, a thought, a hoe, or whatever, right? I set the standards when they come into my office. But what I don't do is I try to erase and act like outside of my office, these contexts, this pressure, this code of being doesn't exist. I have to acknowledge that it does exist. And what I try to teach them is something that's called code switching. Right? I speak as an American person, but when we want to, me throw my accent, I think I'm talking to family. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You know how to switch that shit around, right? I know if I'm in Brooklyn, I speak one way. When I'm in Maryland, I speak another way. When I go overseas, I'm another. Hey, you know what I'm saying? It's different. So you teach the youth to survival for survival.
I need to interrupt. So I'm gonna have to lay that.
I'm on mute. I'm muting. I heard you.
So would you say that so you're aware of what I'm saying then? Because obviously your students when you come in.
No, well the part that I disagree about what you said, maybe that part slipped, was one, I feel like where you're saying there's a level of awareness, right? I'm saying that perhaps like if somebody was to join this panel right now after me, it would be like, hey, we want to welcome you, brother, such and such. Right here, what we do is respect one person speaks at a time. We don't use profanity. What I'm saying is that if that needs to be something that because this is YouTube, this is not like a personal telephone. Like we not calling somebody directly. You know what I'm saying? Like anybody could just join. You don't know at what point they heard it. And I'm saying me specifically, I wasn't using the F-bomb to be disrespectful to your show, brother. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying is that I didn't even.
Sorry, once again, every time you say something that you can run with, I have to stop just for us to synchronize better. No one is here saying that what you're doing is right or wrong. And to be honest, no one. We're all adults here, and we listen to music and watch songs and stuff. We're not offended by anything anyone said. But what I'm is when it comes to discipline and rules, when something happens and it's triggered, it's an automatic response. So if I wasn't helpfully, someone would do it, go, brother, sister, just so you know, we don't use these type of terms at this time on this particular show. It isn't a right or wrong. It's just how it enforced.
Yeah, and I don't think my position is being understood. I don't think my position is being understood, brother.
Sister,
and
before
that's fine.
you're saying this conversation wasn't really directed towards you. It was there's a comment that's been left in the private chat saying, I don't think I can speak because I don't speak a certain kind of English, whatever it might be. And it was more so to the brother saying, the brother, you can say what you will. It's just F-bombs and these kind of bombs we monitor this show because we have a universal audience that we're applying to. And we want to make sure it can be recorded and played back at certain levels without having to be muted all the time, this kind of stuff, right? So it was to him. It was actually not to you.
I got you.
Yeah, but because you're here,
I got you, and I'm not gonna address it anymore. I understand what you're saying, and message understood. Just know that message understood. I'm not like misleading.
Thank you, sister. Now to the listeners, and this is what I was trying to say. There was confusion in the air, and the brother's new to the place, and because he was offensive, the first thing he did was use a derogative term and then leave. Now that's what we're trying to control. We're trying to say. But it's a good case study because once again, this show starts by saying we're collectively inadequate, and communication is part of that problem as well. You see, and what I would try to maybe as the weeks go by is highlight within the UK, Canada, Africa, and all over the diaspora, this concept of going to non-black institutions and having and listen and abiding by the rules in a comfortable manner and understanding why they're set there. But when we come together to actually work on solutions for black people, this is a relaxed time. Now, I'll try. I'm going to have to end the show very soon, but let me give you further examples. I find myself in many black institutions, and when I will be with someone who's just coming from one particular institution, and they're very they're fine, they're good, they're dressed up and suited and booted. When they come, they might want to take up some alcohol and start drinking. Maybe they want to flirt with a woman. Maybe they want to have sexual relationships at that particular place. And I'm like, well, hold on a minute. Haven't we come here to try to fix like this kind of issue here, this kind of issue here, and we're treating like an actual real thing we're trying to do? Why can't we have that discipline or that enforced discipline when you're working as a janitor or in the phone booth or whatever it is your company you're doing? Why can't we have that same kind of discipline when we come to black establishments? And they go, well, if I'm working for black people, I want to be comfortable, and I'm very comfortable when I smoke and drink, and when I whistle at women, and when I get in sexual relations and this kind of stuff, and I use certain kind of language like F this and F that. That's when I'm most comfortable. And I feel like I'll best be able to help black people by doing these things. I'm like, okay, we're collectively inadequate. That makes sense. But at a certain point, I have to go, I'm seeing a contradiction here. I'm seeing that the people who are doing superior to us understand why you don't do that. And they are hiring you, and they're trying to, enforce this, which they're enforcing themselves. But yet, when we are trying to get our people up, we don't understand how to do that. And now, in the attempt at trying to have a way of operating that works best for a broader people, a gentleman might have been slightly insulted, and in his confusion, he then used the language and vacated because he was deeply offended by the shoe. This is what I'm saying, and this is why we have to use as case studies to say, after all this said and done, this is inadequate behavior. And we will keep bringing this up until it is learned. And hopefully at a certain point, the value of why we do what we do will come through, and we'll minimize anxiety. But this is a long journey. But family, it's been a 3 hour and 34-minute show.
Very
right?
good.
Yeah, and it's been very cool. All right. And so, but if you like, we can cover this maybe next week, or something about the importance of language and having like a neutral way of speaking to minimize confusion. But remember, we don't talk about individuals really here. We talk about ideas, and then whenever they come up, we have to bring up so we can educate. There is no right or wrong. And the good thing about me is you feel free to swear at me all you like, be horrible, all this kind of stuff. It won't affect, like I said, it's more so about the platform and respecting that. But when the platform's on, feel free to message me in any kind of profanity. I'm sure that'll be very fun and enjoyable. Cool. Excellent. Now, fam, any last words before we go? Does everyone have the last words before we kick?
Yeah, very good show. Raven, you smashed it. And I think it's good actually that we should come to this space with the same kind of awe and respect as you would as if you was amongst white people. It's true, because it just behave differently. Language is different. Yeah, so it should have the same respect, the same kind of formal, that kind of formal feel, as if you're in Houses of Parliament or something like that. Have a formal attitude. Because of the gravity of what we're talking about, the seriousness of what we're talking about, we should have that same kind of gravity. Yeah, I think it's good what you're saying.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, that's my bit.
And next.
Yeah, I'll go. I'll just say another great show. I was just going to say, adding on for next week, it would be good to actually blend that into what the family who came on a bit later started off the conversation with before, I think, the confusion. When they were talking about what was a good point that you were talking about in regards to diasporans actually staying in the country and going back, and IC3 talking about what I've said before as well, but I call it more of the fact that there's no incentives in order for people to actually go back. So that is kind of what both the Caribbean and the African people should be doing as well. So tying that into kind of how we got here, because that was quite an interesting conversation, hearing it from people from all different sides of the globe as well. Because I definitely think each one of our stories, this is where we do differ. So, for example, someone coming to Like an Italian, for example, like what Sis said, coming to an Irish person coming to America and staying in America, and the fact that there's no incentive for Ireland, or Ireland's not made no incentive for them to come back. But when I was thinking about it, in a way, America is incentivized for them to stay because they wanted that, they were calling for Europeans to come there, you know, and they made it comfortable for them to be there. And so when we look at the foundational Americans and their reasoning for coming over, their story, and those who are from the diaspora who came to America, and those diasporans in the UK, and why we came over again was a whole different, was different. So for example, the Africans who came over here more studied and left and went home, whereas a lot of the Caribbean kind of saw, I know within my family, when my elders had talked, the ones when they were alive, would say that, you know, it's the mother country. They were sold it as paved of gold. Their mother country needed them, right? So it was kind of like what the Irish got, where that was the kind of calling on there. And I think if we don't understand, or if we don't make clear our kind of where we also agree, but where our differences are, you might paint one narrative as the whole black narrative, and that's not the case. So it's very interesting when we're having these kind of conversations as well. So I hope I wasn't rambling on, but yeah, to me that part of when we were all on the panel and people were talking was very, very interesting.
Thank you, sister. Melanie Goddess, would you like your last words, sis? Oh, she's still there. If not, then Brother Kale.
Yeah, just Black Betterment, brother. Black
I'll
Betterment.
go right after Kel. I'm sorry, I was late. But go ahead, Kel. Go ahead, Brother Kel.
No, I said what I need to say, you know, Black Betterment.
And sister, your last words?
Oh, okay. My bad. Yeah, I mean, I was walking around the house and I didn't expect this issue to be done so quickly. But I wanted to say peace to the sis. You know, that's my sis, and I love her dearly. And I appreciate all of her responses and so forth. So I just wanted to say, like, I know I came on kind of late, and I hope that instead of my my input being seeming as if it's contentious, it's more of a actual diasporan perspective, that what is considered to be like how to have these African-centered conversations, these productive conversations. Like, you know, I am a diasporan, and to me, using profanity, I don't necessarily interpret that as hindering conversation that is progressive. I don't necessarily see that as me hindering the quote unquote work that we talk about, because it ain't stopping me from doing the work, right? So that's just input for people who might be like clutching their pearls, like, oh my God, she said the P word, she said the F word, and they're like clutching their pearls. But meanwhile, they sitting around watching them, you know, getting loved and married in the UK or some shit, some reality shit. I'm sorry, some S word or whatever. They're not doing the work. What I'm saying is that all of their opinions about the way that I speak about the work, I am unbothered by that, right? So people, right, I'm just telling you, you know, Brother Raven, as a person who is in the leadership position in this movement, that people, and I don't consider myself to be the youth at all. So if I'm speaking this way, a person that's 25 gives two shits what a 45-year-old actually thinks about them saying fuck, pussy, and whatever. I'm telling you, that's just not going to work. You're not going to be able to police the language if they have the potential to be in those college classes, to be pursuing STEM, to have those Black families that we keep talking about. You can't tell them if they want to fuck their wives or make love to their wives. You're not going to be able to dictate the language. No, I literally use that language for the reason to make the point about dictating.
Let's split the house for a minute. Hold on, I know it's hard.
All right, never mind. I'm good. I
That's
hope you
fine.
understand my point, and
No,
I'm done.
I think you made a
I
perfect
don't
point. I
need
think
this
you made a perfect
censorship
point.
like that. I'm good. I'm good.
No.
I'm
I
good.
think you made a perfect point, System. A perfect point. And what the way we view it on, and we're going to end it now. And I hope we remember that we are collectively inadequate, and this demonstrates that. But I think one way how we have to manage the anxiety of, because the sister might have felt that people might have been judging her, and that's not the case because it's never an individual issue. But I say this: the way we have to get through to Black people is we have to let them know that we're losing, and the things we do as a rule set isn't to compromise their beliefs or their understandings, but it's a strategy, and that's very important. So you say, guess what, sis? I don't think there's anything wrong with the way you talk. I love it. I think it's poetry 2.0, but there's a strategy. If you don't say the word chicken, we're going to win. Do you think for Black people to win, you cannot say the word chicken when you're in this building? If they say yes, then okay, strategy. It has nothing to do with how a person perceives those words or what culture they come from or how good or bad those words might sound when it's said by this person. It's a strategy. And everything we do on this show is a strategy. And that's why no one is going to be offended by anything you say because we're all adults here. But we're trying to use strategies and plans, and that's how it works. Now, for people who've never used strategy before, this is alien. I can't believe it. This strategy was mad. Like, what have a way of operating to make us win? But what if I want to make love on live TV? Well, it's probably not to do that. Then let's have a strategy where you make love in your bedroom, but not on live TV. Think of it that way, right? But friend, we are running out of time, so we have to thank the sister. Everyone's welcome back. Until then, we practice Black Betterment, but we'll speak soon, and maybe we might incorporate this concept of different tongues and tones next week. We'll see. As well as what Empress Christian said. Did you want to say something, Empress?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this would be a good thing to probably have a discussion on in regards to language and breaking that down and the reason, stuff like that behind it.
Yes.
And just to get things more clear and bring
Definitely.
some clarity.
Excellent. Yeah. Because like Sis says, a lot of people think that it's a kind of judgment or this, when it's not. It's a strategy, and it's usually connected to other things that we can't quantify. And maybe when we come with ideas of Black Betterment Broadcast, trying to really articulate them, go, this is why it's for, and this is the byproduct of it. That might make it easier. And maybe we'll take it next week. But until that, we've gone 3 hours and 44. It's a long time. So we're gonna have to end now. But thank you, everyone. Have a good time. And next week, Black Betterment. There you go. Have a good one.